He's the founder of Sam Adams. He married a woman from the Snyder County. I forget his name.
Founder of Sam. Why?
Coke or something like that.
Jim Cook.
Yeah, Cook. That's it. Cook.
Jim Cook, right? Yeah. Yeah. I think it's Jim Cook. Goodness, isn't that sad? How 800,000 commercials, and then you still don't know who it is, which probably says a lot more about the commercials than anything else. All right, let's see. Okay, so we are on Facebook. So now you're gonna see me kind of ignore you somewhat for a bit. I'm gonna be doing my national sharing, which takes a bit. I don't know why I can't some of the best programmers on the planet, but Facebook can't let you share to a whole list of things with one tap. Pretty irritating. There we go. No, that's not right. There it is. There it is. George, can you let me know if somebody's in watching? Because I can't see it while I'm doing this.
Yes, am I?
I see. It looks like there's two people in the room. I don't know if that's me and you. I'm not sure who is in the Facebook room, but thank you for being there. This is the terribly, terribly exciting pre-production part of the program where you get to watch me share the program throughout the Facebook universe as we lament each week that I have to share the program one by one by one by one by one by one by one. So that's what we are in the midst of doing at this time. Thank you for being there and being patient. You know that we will go live on the radio in the formal introduction to the program right at, oh my goodness, and it's supposed to be 5 minutes. If we pull that off, kids, that'll be something. See if we can pull that off. Because right now it's not looking like it.
2 people watching.
Well, one of them I think might be me. Technically, because I'm monitoring it.
Okay. And then
Sure, the other is my lovely wife.
Oh.
Okay, great. No pressure.
My guess.
What is that? I don't know what that is. Done. Fix that. Where am I? Come on. Something is different with this screen. A lot less sensitive. Mm-hmm. Your wife is watching? She doesn't know what you look like by now?
She's probably doing it to be hypercritical, actually.
She's trying to find out what the heck it was you were doing on that.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Making sure that what I said was true.
How was your day, honey? I can't tell you. It's classified. I can't get into it. She's going to learn right along with the rest of us. Come on, come on, come on. God, this takes too long. Okay. That was a mistake. Oh, God, I hate this bit. Gotta be a way to do this better. Facebook, if you're listening. Of course, I'm sure you're not listening to Facebook, but just in case you are, gotta be a better way to do this.
There are a lot of jokes in there, but
Oh, well,
the punchline is Mark Zuckerberg.
yeah, they're listening. I mean, it just, you know, are the programmers listening? I don't know about that. Yeah. Came up quick. It's actually starting. God bless Apple and its intuitiveness. It's actually starting to learn the groups that I go to each time. One more. Free speech. Speech. Come on. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Every week I say I'm going to start this sooner, and I don't ever do it because I refuse to learn, apparently. Share to a group. Here, 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 here. And that one. And that. And that. And that. And that. And that. 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 Almost there. Almost there. Okay. Open up. Comments. Okay. Oh, we're just about there. Okay, 5:01. We're good. Okay. Now, really should have got tissues. I can turn the camera off. Wait. Up. Okay, here we go. Push and play on the radio. Here we go. We hope. Oh boy. We're having difficulty connecting to the radio. I really wish you could see what I see, George. We are having tremendous problems connecting to the radio right now. We cannot get connected to the radio.
Yeah, I don't hear anything on hot101.net.
What is on there right now?
DJ Mike Torres
Yeah.
live in the mix.
Here we go, because he's not supposed to be. Okay.
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know
And young enough to do.
well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
But it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight?
A man whose record shows that he will fight for what is right.
A loyal man who'll bring the job a fresh new point of view? Well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
Cause it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president no matter what his creed?
It's promised in the Bill of Rights to which we must be true.
So it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
And it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair?
We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you cast your vote for Kennedy and the change that's overdue. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you.
Yes, it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me.
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Welcome, 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 one and all, from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States, on this planet Earth, the only one we have. Third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect for the 28th of March, 2021. We have already come to the end of March. Seems to me that I'm getting a tiny bit repetitive with you about how quickly this year is going, but it is hard to not notice, isn't it? Year is flying by. I appreciate you being a bit patient with me. Oh, don't we love technology? Oh, don't we love technology? We always start early, George and I. We're usually here very early as 4 p.m. usually. And we had some issues getting onto Hot 101 today, and the sharing on the Facebook end took, I don't know, about 6.2 days, I think. So that took a while. But we appreciate you being patient with us. We're here for, and thank you for welcoming us again into your homes and lives on another Sunday evening, a rainy, damp Sunday evening here in the greater Lehigh Valley. For all of you watching all across the Facebook universe, we thank you very, very much. Kind of cut down the sharing a little bit this week. There's some places that we've been sending the show that just don't seem to forward it on. So we cut that down a little bit. I think we were at 80 think we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 places that we shared the program this week. So if you are seeing us on any of those 80 places, stay right there, enjoy, watch, listen in the background, because, nobody wants to stare at this for 4 hours. But, feel free if you want to, because Zach's a handsome dude. So stare at that for a while and listen in the background. We will be with you for the next 3 to 4 hours, depending on how much it takes me before I run out of steam and shut up eventually. But if you would like to take part in the live chat that happens during the program, please come on over. We love all the pages that we share the program to. We would never, minimize them or disrespect them. But if you would like to come over to the live chat that's happening right now, it's right on your screen, our home group Facebook page for the program and all things the Kennedy Effect, that other side of information. If you're watching on any of those other groups, you can stay right there. Just if you want to take part in the program, I won't see your comments. I won't see your names. I won't see any of it. The only place I will see you is at that other side of information. So feel free to come on over. I will see you, see your name. You can put comments, questions, agree with me, disagree with me, yell, scream, kick, show suggestions, guest suggestions, you name it, you can put it in there. I will see it, and you can be part of the program. To our sisters, brothers, friends, and family at hot101.net, again, thank you for being a bit patient with us. We do appreciate it. Had a little trouble connecting to you via the software this evening. Took us an extra minute or two, but thanks for hanging in there with us. We're with you now, and we are honored to be so. We are very, very proud to be part of the hot101.net family. So wherever you are taking in hot101.net, if it's in the car, your phone, your tablet, your laptop, a smart speaker, however you do it, we're just glad that you are there. Hot101.net and this program have listeners literally around the globe. Australia, New Zealand, dotted throughout the European continent, Central and South America, and in Canada, and of course, the United States. So thank you for being there. If you do not know how to listen to hot101.net, it's so very easy. The main website, the website address, it's right in the name, hot101.net. If you have an Apple device, go to the Apple App Store and you can find the app for hot101.net. If you have an Android device, you can go to the Google Play Store. You will find the app there for hot101.net. Or if you have the TuneIn radio app, go up to the search bar and search for hot101.net. Other ways that you can reach us live on the program this evening, you can live tweet us. Do you know how many live tweets we've had since we opened the Twitter account, George and I? Live tweets at us actually doing a live broadcast. Sit back. Are you sitting down? Zach's sitting down. I'm glad he is, because I'm sure this number is going to blow him away. We've had literally, 0. So, but that's okay. You can be the first. Set a trend. It's okay. Please feel free to live tweet the program. You can do that at that Kennedy Talk. Of course, you know how Twitter handles are. It's all one word. At that Kennedy Talk, or go to twitter.com, that other side of information. You can also email the program, thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. And of course, the bane of my existence, it's what I live for, it's what I lose sleep over. As you can see right here, it's what I lose sleep over. We will open the Are You Sitting Down phone line later in the program. You can call us and be part of the program. Call us. Tell us what you're thinking. Like a talk show. Those things, they're all over the radio. This would be one of them. You can call us and share your thoughts, ask questions, etc., etc., etc. I don't have to tell you how that works. But after this very long introduction, let me get to my honored guest. And again, I've been very lucky. I've been truly very lucky, and I don't say that lightly, that nearly everyone who has appeared on this program, some have been newer friendships than others, but I've been very, very fortunate that everyone who has appeared on this program, for the most part, has been a friend. And I am proud to say that today, my friend is my guest, Zach Fowler. Zach is an attorney and is a former congressional staffer on the staff of Representative Susan Wild from the Pennsylvania 7th District, which is my district here in the Lehigh Valley area. And his policy well, you know what? Well, your policy concentration, you told me, was largely in healthcare, but I will let you explain who you are, and I will allow you to do that, or I will ask you to do that with the traditional opening question to the program, which is intentionally vague to give you the opportunity to answer it and take the answer in any direction that you may wish. And that is, who is Zach Fowler, and how did you get here?
Hey, thanks for having me, Jeff. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the open-ended question, too. It makes my life a lot easier. So I am Zach Fowler. I am an attorney in the Malvern, Pennsylvania area. And I grew up in New Cumberland, Pennsylvania, which is about 5 minutes south of Harrisburg, home to the district that Scott Perry represents. Lucky me. Lucky me. And I made it 30 seconds into my answer, and I'm going to ask for your indulgence already. And
does that make you the first? That makes you the first guest, maybe, from a congressional district represented by an out-and-out fascist. It might. It might be. It might be.
What's wrong with that guy? Seriously, last week on the Foreign Affairs Committee,
about for an hour.
Foreign Affairs Committee in the United States House of Representatives, Scott Perry had the audacity to compare the dismemberment of Jamal Khashoggi to cancel culture on the left. Cancel culture on the left.
Yeah.
And Scott Perry's not a dumb guy. Trust me, he knows what he's doing. But I actually have a little secret about Scott Perry that I'll share with you.
Nice. We love secrets.
Well, it's a well-known secret. I'm sure you know. He plays a strong man on TV, super offensive when he can be. But his secret is he is totally submissive to the donor ruling class, the millionaire class of this country. And he's apparently submissive to the millionaire class abroad, including the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, with those just completely offensive comments. So yeah, great guy, Scott Perry. But that was a really terrible digression already. And I apologize for that. But more,
hey, don't worry. Haven't you watched the program? That's pretty much what the whole program is. I start with this very open-ended question, and we just do nothing but digress from there. We start on a really big, we go opposite the flow of water. We start in the ocean, we go up the river and end ourselves in a tiny creek somewhere. And then we run the boat aground. That's pretty much how we run the program. So no worries.
Good.
We're well on track.
I'm glad to hear that. I will happily help you run the ship into the ground. But yeah, so I grew up in New Cumberland, went to school in central Pennsylvania, went to college in central Pennsylvania, went to law school in central Pennsylvania, and then my beautiful wife, Amy, convinced me to move out to the Lehigh Valley after law school. Got linked up with a great firm, learned how to be a litigation attorney from a great mentor and friend named Susan Wild, who was then a partner at Gross McGinley. And about 6 years in, she decided that she was going to run for Congress. And so she got elected in 2018, at which time she said, Zach, come on down to DC with me. And so I did, and I served in the 116th Congress with Congresswoman Wild as her senior counsel on Capitol Hill. And so I handled, as you were talking about, her healthcare portfolio, handled her labor portfolio. And obviously we have such a big presence in the Lehigh Valley of labor, both current labor and the vestiges of labor from years past. And we did really important work in that space, and it was a lot of fun. It was fulfilling, and got another job opportunity then in December of 2020, and took that job. And no sooner had I taken that job, there was an insurrection at the Capitol, and so I had a lot of friends that I was texting and making sure that they were okay, and I'm glad they were. But yeah, so that's a little bit of background about myself, and we had a good run in the 116th Congress, and I was glad to see that Susan Wild is now again representing the district in the 117th Congress.
I would love to jump all over the insurrection. I am happy for you, I guess, although I somehow feel there's a part of my brain telling me that wording is somehow unfortunate, but I'm happy for you, I guess, that you missed it and that you weren't, seeking higher ground, as it were, to borrow a phrase. But I'm happy you missed it. But let me ask you, I would have to assume that on 6 January, you were perhaps, at the law office, at work, perhaps you were working from home still under COVID conditions. You probably have a TV on in the background, or, your Twitter is open, the phone starts to blow up, whatever the case may be. And I suppose at the end of the day, it's probably not that important, but you are somehow alerted that this thing is happening. Do you rush to the TV, as you're watching it? What when I see video or a news story from Manhattan, let's say, because my previous employer did so much of our work in Manhattan, I go, oh, I've been there. I know that intersection. I know exactly what that street looks like. Or, I know, boy, that's a crowded place. No surprise there's a mob of people there. Oh no, that's a great place to protest. I know that. Or if I see a video online from Disney, and I remember the times that I was on that ride or walked past that shop or bought cookies at the cookie store on Main Street, USA, or something like that. When you're watching the events of 6 January, what are you doing? Do you rush to a TV and think to myself, my God, they're in here. I worked there. I walked there. I know that that the seditionists, the insurrectionists, this coup attempt, they're only 100 yards from the chamber. Now they're only 50 yards from the chamber. What are you thinking when you're watching 6 January?
Thinking of my friendships first and foremost. I mean, Congresswoman Wild is still a dear friend, will always be. And then, of course, all my friends back on her staff too, and the friends on other staff. So that was the first thought that popped in my mind, and I'm immediately furiously texting everyone, making sure that they're all okay and accounted for. Fortunately, the Congresswoman had the foresight to have people work from home that day, so there wasn't much of a concern there. But of course, Congresswoman Wild was locked in the gallery. Actually, she was put up in the gallery as a safety precaution as they were banging on the doors of the floor of the House. And she was nice enough to give us updates when she could. Clearly, she was rattled, and it rattled me too. I still kind of believe that building means something more than just brick and mortar. I met John Lewis for the first time on the floor of that House, and he called me his young brother and acted as if we had known each other forever, and I'm just a staffer. Who cares? I'm just another staffer, but he made me feel a part of all this. So it's a great place, and for them to just completely defile it in the manner that they did is disgusting to me. And I will never ever understand anyone that will equivocate on that or will defend that ever. I mean, I've lost, I wouldn't say friendships, but I've lost acquaintances over this because I'm just not in the business of defending insurrectionists. Not too old for that now.
Yeah, isn't it silly? Folks like you and I are just so we're such old sticks in the mud, and we're so old fashioned that we don't tend to fancy things like, I don't know, armed insurrection, and that the Capitol had not seen anything remotely like that since 1814. Not even during the Civil War did the Army of Northern Virginia make it to the steps of the Capitol.
It wasn't our own people in 1814. That's what kills me.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, though, about the Civil War. I think some people, not knowing their own history, think that surely during the Civil War the Capitol was ransacked. No, it really wasn't. No, they never made it there. Were you surprised by the events of the 6th of January?
No, and that's the sad part. It was simmering beneath the surface for a long time, especially after the election. And, you know, Donald Trump definitely instigated it. There's no doubt about that. You know, he was smart enough to use coded language. He didn't, you know, say break into the Capitol and kill everyone, but you know, he said enough that they understood what he meant, and they carried out exactly what he meant. And he could have easily had the security in place so that our Capitol police officers weren't overrun. And that was another group of people that I immediately thought about. Every day when I walked into work in the Longworth office building and walked through the halls of the Capitol, I ran into guys and girls that were just going to work every day for a job that didn't pay that great, but they were doing their job. And it's funny, you know, the Blue Lives Matter folks that were dotted in that insurrection just completely ignored the Blue Lives Matter.
Yeah, the Blue Lives Matter folks that were the first ones to beat the hell out of Capitol cops with their own gear, fire extinguishers, flagpoles. That Blue Lives Matter, those guys, yeah. But then again, that it is the, you know, it's just a few grains of salt from the hypocrisy party, isn't it?
They ought to set up, in my opinion, they ought to set up a victims fund for the police officers in the same way that they did with the 9/11 victims fund. I'm not saying that, you know, they're the same event by any means, but you know, people's lives were ruined based on terrorist activity in both situations. Obviously of different magnitudes in terms of lives lost, but no different to those families that lost the lives of people that meant a lot to them. So yeah, you know, I got to know some of the Capitol police officers, great people, and they would let, you know, if I was walking in with Congresswoman Wild and she had her, you know, her Congress member pin on her lapel, come on through, how you doing? You know, great to see you again. Guarantee you that's not happening anymore.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's going through security now, so it's sad. I am saddened by all that.
And let me ask, I think I have this correct, but please, I beg you, you know, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm very happy to learn things that I do not understand or do not know. When we think of the Capitol Police, they are not simply restricted to the Capitol building, are they not? They also patrol the adjacent office buildings that the various members, because Congresswoman Wild does not have an office in the Capitol building. It's actually in another office building. Senators don't actually have offices in the Capitol building. Leadership does.
Correct.
Speaker Pelosi has the Speaker's office. Leader Schumer has the Leader's office. Even Leader McConnell has an office as the minority. But where, and we love saying minority, but where, especially when it comes to McConnell, but where, so she, Representative Wild has an office, but it's not in the Capitol proper, because the Capitol at the time it was constructed couldn't house, or well, it could house the number of members we had then. It cannot now. So you have offices at a separate building. Does the Capitol Police, they patrol those buildings as well, do they not? It's more of a campus, for the lack of a better term, that they patrol and have jurisdiction over. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So Congresswoman Wild was in the Longworth House Office building. That's where I went to work every day. There's obviously the Rayburn building as well. And they're all actually interconnected under an underground tunnel. So that was another thing that popped into my mind when the insurrection was happening was, boy, I hope they're getting to the underground tunnel in time. You know, everybody has badges, staff badges and everything. It was a little laissez-faire in terms of, you know, you're a staffer, go ahead, go on in. But I get the sense that that'll never be the same, and rightfully so. You know, there is some evidence, as I see it, that there were some members of Congress that were participating in the lead up and planning to the insurrection. Whether or not they knew that they were participating in it, and maybe they were even not knowingly participating in it. But that being the case, you got to treat everybody like a security threat until they're confirmed that they're not at this point.
You kind of stole my next question, and you've pretty much answered it. But is it your belief that this was a planned operation
100%. 100%.
with
It
the
was way
complicity?
too successful for it to just be, you know, on a whim event. I get the sense that they were equipped. I mean, you saw guys that had zip ties in their hand. They came prepared. Yeah, guys with stun guns, for lack of a better term, on an extendable
The pole, like
baton.
a cattle prod. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly, like a cattle
cattle prod.
prod.
Yeah.
Horrible. But yeah, I mean, there was advanced planning to this, and you saw it in the lead up to it too, with the rounds on Facebook and the crazy conspiracy theory message boards. It was pretty clear that it was being organized, and
Do you believe that there were?
Giuliani company lit the flame and threw it on.
Do you believe that there are, or I almost said were, but that would make it sound that they're not there anymore. Do you believe that there are sitting members of the House of Representatives and or the Senate who are complicit in this?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And it's not beneath me to name names. I don't work there anymore, so you got Paul Gosar, whose family hates him. He was asking the president, as far as I'm aware, that is there a pardon here for me? That's been reported in some news sources. Andy Briggs, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm drawing a blank on the other one.
I think Boebert from Colorado was giving a tour of the Capitol just a couple of days before.
Exactly.
Mikey Sherrill, the Democratic member from New Jersey, from Morris County, the Morris County area, reported that she saw members giving people tours of the Capitol, even though tours had been suspended because of COVID precaution. You also had the meeting at one of the hotel rooms at Trump Tower, DC, with Senator Tuberville and Mike Flynn and Don Jr. and Eric and Laura and Trump himself.
And the interesting player and all that is, of course, Mike Flynn's brother.
Right, who's still enlisted, who is still in the military. Are you a little surprised at the slow pace the Biden administration has taken in purging Trump appointees and officials? You still have the Social Security Administration is still run by a Trump appointee, and they're continuing to try to privatize it and deny it. They have launched a program they have launched a quote unquote pilot program to take folks off of regular Social Security and move them into Medicare, it was really, and move them onto Medicare Advantage without their knowledge, by the way, to investigate whether it would be more cost effective. You still have Louis DeJoy at the post office. Mike Flynn's brother, as we just said, is still enlisted in the military. He's not being purged, even though he has openly, by the way, spoken of his QAnon affiliations. He was an integral part of denying DC and the Capitol Police National Guard backup that day, and denying the lines of communication between the Maryland National Guard and the Virginia National Guard that day. Are you a bit taken aback at how long it has taken the Biden administration to do these things? Because you certainly know, and we have the evidence of it, that if you had if you had a D behind your name, you ever voted D in your life, or you had anything to do with the Obama administration when the Trump regime took power, you were out in your ear.
I would say that I wouldn't be surprised if, President Biden were pushing for a really worker first agenda, and that was just put on the back burner. And I would support that. The fact that he hasn't really done that, and to my belief, compounds the mistake of not also purging the far right extremists as well. Like if he was going to focus in on something, he should have focused in on something that mattered right away, like helping workers getting $15 an hour, for instance. But having said that, that would have been a reasonable distraction from focusing on the insurrection. But the fact that it doesn't seem like that has been the top priority at this point, yeah, I am a little surprised then. I mean, what else are you going to be doing? I get that he's trying to establish a cabinet, and that he's working with really narrow majorities. I get that political reality, but it is a little surprising that it doesn't seem like he's been advancing what I would consider a really strong pro-worker, pro-middle class agenda, while ignoring the insurrection. It seems like he's ignoring the insurrection and also just trying to get his ducks in a row still. And a lot of that may be, again, the narrow majorities that he's holding. But, I guess I am a little surprised that nothing seems to be getting accomplished in terms of purging these people from government.
5:33 Eastern Time here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in a rainy Lehigh Valley here today on this Sunday, 28 March 2021. This is the Kennedy Effect for yet another Sunday. We're approaching, by the way, a year's anniversary of this program. I'd love to say we're planning some big blowout, fancy clip, spectacular, but to be blunt, we haven't even discussed it yet. And boy, that would be a hell of a lot of editing. So I'm not sure we're going to have a big anniversary celebration, but we are coming up on a year. Wherever you're watching across the Facebook universe, thank you for being there. Wherever you may be watching, feel free to hang and stay right there. Enjoy the program, soak up the information. However, if you would like to be part of the chat and interact with the program, please come over to our home Facebook page. That other side of information looks, the live folks, if that little graphic is accurate, and I'm told that it's kind of not, because if you're there for a little while or if you don't comment, it kind of drops you, but whatever. The live seems to be hovering, but between 10 and 15. That's awesome. Of course, I wish it was 110,000, but that's, doesn't happen that way all the time. But we're happy that you're there. You can put your comments, questions in the chat. That other side of information. Hot101.net family, thanks again for welcoming us into your lives again this Sunday evening. If you don't know how to listen to Hot101.net, it's incredibly simple. The home page address is right in the name, Hot101.net. Apple Store, Google Play Store. You can get the apps right there. Hot101.net. Just search for it. There's an app for Apple and an app for your Android device at the Google Play Store. And the TuneIn radio app, which works on every type of device. You just go up to the search bar and search for Hot101.net, and you can listen to us there. That is the audio part of the program. And of course, that will work on your phones, your tablets. Stream it Bluetooth into the car while you are traveling around. And I believe it will go to your smart speakers as well. I'm almost certain of that. You can live tweet the program at That Kennedy Talk. The email is thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. Listen, we offer you about as many ways as humanly possible to contact and interact with the program. We are very, very fond of NPR. They're awesome. If you want to be lectured to them, go there. We don't want this to be a lecture. That's why we have guests. That's why we talk to you. That's why we ask you questions and not just lecture at you. We want to interact with you. We want to know what you're thinking. We want you to contact the program. And shortly, perhaps as early as in this half hour, I will put the phone number on the screen and start giving it out, and you can call us and talk to us. What are you surprised at how difficult it's been to form I almost hate to use the standard name for it, but are you shocked at how hard it's been to form this quote unquote 9/11 style commission to look what happened on the 6th of January?
I'm not, and the reason that I'm not is that unlike 9/11, where the terrorists were not a voting bloc of a particular party. The insurrectionists are the supporters of some of these members. I'm not saying all members of the Republican Party would be against a true independent commission. What I am saying is that there's a significant enough number of Republicans out there that identify those people who stormed the Capitol as their voting bloc, as their supporters, as their constituency, and they're not about to go alienate themselves from that voting bloc by setting up a truly independent commission to investigate the wrongdoing that occurred. So no, I'm not surprised.
This has become a bit almost cliche, and it's a shame, I think, how cliche it's become in just a week. But do you agree with, do you kind of agree with the cliche that because Republicans cannot win elections on issues, they have now begun to choose their voters?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it makes total sense. And look, at the end of the day, it's not the voters that they're beholden to. Yeah, it's the dark money, and that's in both parties, mind you. I'm not piling on the Republican Party, but at the end of the day, picking your voters is great. That's what they're going to try to do with gerrymandering and everything else. But at the end of the day, there's a significant number of elected members in both parties who are controlled by the donor class. And that is 100% true. And I could speak for days about my interactions with lobbyists on the Hill. We had a policy in our office, and I actually liked the policy that we would meet with anyone who asked for a meeting. That's anyone. We would find a way to meet with them, not necessarily at a member level, right? But a staffer would at least meet. Big pharma, my God, calls, emails, follow-up phone calls, follow-up emails, knocking on our door, cold calls. They have significant power in the halls of Congress. There's no doubt about that. And I even was upfront with them because I knew that Rep. Wild was with me on this. We're not going to agree. I'll meet with you. Like, not going to do what you want us to do. And they would give us the same tired pitch that's just completely bogus. Any new regulations going to stifle innovation? Don't you want research and development of new innovative drugs? And we dump our own money back. All baloney, of course, because they spend more on advertising. They could lose $1 trillion with a T, according to Johns Hopkins research, and still be the most profitable industry in the United States. They are out to protect their shareholders and maximize profits. That's what they're there for. And they are literally around every turn in the halls of Congress.
When you and I, regular listeners and viewers of the program will know that I have the opportunity, or I try to make the opportunity to speak to all of my guests prior to the program, so just so that they know what they're up for and we can get a feel for what we want to discuss, and sometimes, to be blunt, not discuss. And I bounced a number off of you that I believe to be correct. There are 7, I believe it's 7 lobbyists for every member of Congress. That's and we tend to conflate the term Congress, by the way, to mean just the House. Congress actually, within the context of the Constitution, means both houses. So for the 535 members of Congress, there are 7 lobbyists for each member, and that number might be low. My brain is trying to tell me that it might be higher than that. It might be as high as 14, but I think it's 7. And I believe that 3 of that 7 are pharma related. Do those numbers sound in the ballpark to you? Even if I'm not exact, does that sound somewhere in the neighborhood?
Yeah, I don't have the data, but anecdotally, that would seem to be about right. They used to have what's known as congressional fly-in days, where literally just droves of people come into the Capitol and they hit up every office. They have it listed out, in 30-minute blocks. and they're going office to office to office talking to people. That actually kind of decreased towards the end of my tenure because of COVID, where the fly-ins stopped. They still emailed and tried to get meetings virtually, but I did see a significant reduction in the number of meetings because it was easier to ignore emails than emails, phone calls, and cold arrivals at the doorstep. But yeah, lobbyists are everywhere on Capitol Hill. Some are out for the right reasons. You have American Heart Association coming, which is great, and they have legislation to improve the healthcare in our country. That's great. And there's ones that are there where you call them on it and you say, look, I know why you're here. You're here to maximize your returns for your shareholders, and that's the truth of it. But yeah, it's a pretty wild experience. So fly-in days are something else, because in addition to meeting with people, we have committee work. Rep. Wild was on the Foreign Affairs Committee, Education and Labor Committee, and the Ethics Committee. And we as staffers had to prepare for those hearings, read witness testimony, prepare lines of questions for the members. And you got to get to Rayburn for the hearing room, and there's just crowds of people. It takes a half an hour to get a elevator, it felt like. But yeah, those fly-in days were regular. And I get the sense that the opposition to HR 1 is, of course, the fact that these members of Congress in some part owe their seat to these lobbyists who make campaign contributions. And until we get rid of the donor ruling class in this country, we're gonna be in trouble. People are going to be left behind. It's the corporate citizens are the first-rate citizens, and the average Joe are the second-rate citizens in our country, and that's the reality.
This might be a question that's a bit in the weeds, but you made me kind of think of something that kind of isn't clicking with me, and God knows that wouldn't be the first thing that doesn't click in this brain. But why would there be such a need for these fly-in days? I visited DC as a tourist. I mean, you can walk around and just see buildings full of, here's the Heritage Foundation. Here's Americans for Tax Progress. Here's the American Medical Association. Here's the Sierra Club. Here's, organizations on both sides of the fence, ones that are trying to do what you and I would consider to be truly decent work. Hell, I even saw the building, for the Salvation Army. Why would there need to be these fly-in days? It would seem to me that any office building that has a roof on it seems to be loaded up with lawyers and lobbyists, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I saw buildings for, the AFL-CIO, if I thought hard enough, I'm sure I could list probably 100 of them if I really put my brain to it. But it would seem to me that these folks, they go into the office probably in the morning at 7, 8 o'clock, check their emails, and then they walk up to Capitol Hill. And then, like you said, it's like, Cersei taking the walk of shame in Game of Thrones when you're trying to go from, point A to point B. They're harassed, or do you need a cab when you're coming out of the airport? What do you, somebody trying to sell you a timeshare or something? I mean, what do you, what are they? I mean, why would there be these? What am I missing here?
Yeah. So on a fundamental level, the best lobbyists are the ones that are getting people to fly in, and the reason for that is there's no better way to get an office's attention and a member's attention than to show up as a lobbyist with somebody from the district and say, okay, here's a business owner from the 10th district in California, and they want you to do X, Y, and Z. When in reality, the lobbyists are probably, sending out feelers all over the place. They just got to find one from the district. They bring them in. And it's a way of convincing the member to do what you want them to do.
Your fly-in day was finding a business owner, say in Allentown, and I've got Joe from Joe's Pizza in Allentown, and he's just against these small business taxes, or there are hardly any, but that's aside the point. When we're giving trillions of dollars to the fossil fuel industry, but and he needs to talk to you. And he's sitting, by the way, next to a lobbyist from the Heritage Foundation.
That's exactly how it works. Yep. And
of
the
course, you
reason
don't
for
want
that
to
is
deny that
easy.
visit. You don't want to deny that visit because he's a constituent.
Exactly right. Yep. And then you want to do right by that constituent as well. So you end up doing it. And it also has the benefit of giving the member a little bit of political cover when they do something that the lobbyist wants to do. It's not just the lobbyist, it's also, my constituent, even if it's not even a preponderance of the constituents, it may be just one constituent, but it gives you that political cover. And it's sad because really people, average Joes, that exist outside the Beltway are sick and tired of the lobbyist, situation. But people inside the Beltway have this weird thought process. Everything is seen through a prism, right? And the prism is the action that we're about to take going to upset the donor class, or is it going to make it harder to be reelected? Those are always the considerations. And so what ends up happening is inside the Beltway, there's a group of people that work in various jobs. They then eventually work their way up onto Capitol Hill. And now that idea it's a vicious cycle. It just goes all around and around. It's groupthink. And, it's a shame because there's a lot of perspective outside the Beltway that I think would go a really long way. And I really enjoyed my time in Congress. I was lucky, I didn't have to pay my dues working in DC first because I had that pre-existing relationship with Congresswoman Wild, and she wanted a diversity of opinion in her office. And we gave it to her to the extent we could, which I think was healthy. There were, Beltway staffers on Susan Wild's staff, smart people, and then there were, other people who were outside the Beltway who wanted to, be a little bit more forceful in doing things that were more people based and not company and lobbyist based. So it was a healthy debate, and that's what she wanted. And it's the team of rivals approach, as I like to say. So that's the reality of what's happening in DC as I saw it in those 2 years.
Is there any way, and this might be very much of an oversimplification, and I hope you'll forgive me if it is, but is there any way to break the cycle that you're discussing without overturning Citizens United?
Good question. I mean, passing HR 1 would be a good start, but of course that undoes the ramifications of Citizens United as well. So while HR 1 goes a little bit further, obviously it does deal with Citizens United. But yeah, I think fundamentally that's the starting point, right? Corporations are not people. Brick and mortar buildings are not people. In fact, people set up corporations to insulate themselves from personal liability and personal responsibility. They know that they are creating a legal fiction to protect themselves. Corporations are not people. They are not people. I will never, ever admit that they are people. I wouldn't even argue in court if I was paid. I would turn down that case. No way. Corporations are not people.
Isn't the interesting thing that corporations are essentially, I want to choose my word. I'm talking to an attorney, so I want to be careful that I use the right word. Corporations are recognized, granted, perhaps, if I'm using the right terminology, by the state. The state being, a generic term for government.
Hmm?
Your personhood is not granted you by the government, but yet, nor is mine, but yet corporations are people.
I'm with you. It's
counterintuitive. Has ExxonMobil ever gone to prison or brought up on charges for murder?
I mean, there's certainly been criminal charges against corporations, don't get me wrong, but It just,
You know what?
it's
I
so
wanna do
backwards.
this. I want to do this right now. I just thought of this. I'm excited because I've never been able to use this on an attorney. Though you have not claimed yourself a constitutional attorney, I am not either, and I don't.
And I'm not. For
I
the
don't-
record, I'm definitely not.
Right. I'm not either, and I don't play one on TV. I promise you. But I wanted to see if I could walk you through a bit of logic. And I told you we're working our way upstream until we run the boat aground. We're taking a big leap because now we're going out of a big river into a smaller
That's
tributary.
all right. I'm okay railing against
wanna walk
corporate greed.
Yeah, I just want to walk you through this line of thought because I fancy myself a bit bright for this. If we all have a First Amendment constitutional right to free speech, and at least in theory, we all have that right equally, yes?
Right.
At least
Theory.
the Supreme Court in this Citizens United decision determined, or was it the Bilotti decision where they it's the three decisions that really led us here: Buckley, Bilotti, and Citizens United. But I think it was Citizens United that finally codified this. That money is speech. It equated the two things and made them practically equal.
Mhm.
If money is not equally distributed, then how do we all have the same equality in speech? How are we all equally protected, to draw in the Fourth Amendment? How are we all equally protected, and how can we all equally access the First Amendment? And therefore, why is Citizens United constitutional?
Look, you're asking all the right questions. So
Hey,
look.
I asked the right questions.
Yeah, right.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here.
And we're done. We're done.
Try the meatloaf.
No, look, one of the best performances Congresswoman Wild had in committee, in my opinion, was one I worked super hard on with her, and it was a RFRA hearing, which is
Explain that for me.
yeah. So basically, what that is it kind of dovetails into Citizens United, right? So corporations are saying that they have closely held religious beliefs because they're people, and because of that, they don't
Kind of like
have to give, for instance, coverage for contraceptives because they're religious, right?
the
So
Chick-fil-A, Hobby Lobby.
Hobby Lobby decision,
Got it.
right, all those decisions. And you're right, I said Citizens United, I meant Hobby Lobby, so apologies. But yeah, so a Hobby Lobby decision. So they're arguing, corporations are people that have religious, they have closely held religious beliefs. So it's almost like a blend of Hobby Lobby and Citizens United. Corporations are people, they have religious beliefs. What Susan Wild did in that hearing was unbelievable. She had the website for Hobby Lobby up and said, go to the webpage for Hobby Lobby. What's on there? Oh, okay. So they're selling arts and crafts. They're in the business to make money. They're not in the business to be a religious organization.
Mm-mm.
They are not a church. They're not. I get it. Churches have First Amendment protections, and they should. Hobby Lobby should not. And of course, one of the Republicans on the committee found a little tiny line, in small tiny print, not even on the homepage. You had to go click around, saying that religion is part of their principles of how they run the business. The purpose of the website was to direct people to put things into an electronic shopping cart and check out and make money. That was the purpose. So she just railed on them for the 5 minutes that they're allotted. They're only allotted 5 minutes. But she made the point that corporations aren't people, and that applied in Hobby Lobby, and that applies in Citizens United. They shouldn't be using their corporate form to deny people rights under First Amendment religious grounds, and they shouldn't be spending cash and asserting First Amendment speech rights under Citizens United to make political donations as they see fit, and not people.
That's what gets me about Citizens United. That's where I get lost in it. Beyond the fundamental lack of fairness, if money's not equally distributed and if you've equated money with speech, then I don't have the same free speech that and believe me, look, we know each other. You're going to take this the right way. I'm not an attorney. I don't earn what you earn. Our speech is not equal. You have deeper connections inside the political realm than I do. Mostly because I won't shut up and no one wants to listen to me. But that's beside. So guess what?
I want to listen to you, Jeff.
So I bought a microphone. So, but from a money standpoint, you and I don't have equal sets of money, and that's fine. You educated yourself in a different area. You chose a different career path. It leads to greater earnings. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not here to. I am not criticizing it, and I'm not here to criticize it. But if I'm Bezos or Elon Musk or Jamie Dimon, or who is someone I should mention a hell of a lot more evil, rotten black hole of a soul that he doesn't have, it's not equal. He can literally buy. Look at the way Mike Bloomberg ran for mayor in New York City, and I was living on the east of New Jersey when he ran for mayor. He bought all the media. His election opponents, both primary and general, simply could not get media, period. They couldn't get it. There were certain TV stations they couldn't get on no matter how much they paid for ad time because he bought it all. That's not speech. It's finance. It's money.
You know what is speech, though, Jeff? And I will go back to this forever, is there is strength in union, right? So even if you pull all your money and all your resources together, all of a sudden you become more powerful. And these ultra rich people have become ultra rich by making it really hard to join a union. So I was
going to get to unions in the next hour. Yeah, I was going to get to unions in the next hour. Let me ask you another constitutional question, because I'm going to reset the program here again at the top of the hour. Let me ask you a related but non-related, because it is a constitutional question. And I guess it's only related because it's a constitutional question. It's one of those rare bits where I think I might be a bit smart. On the rare occasion, even a blind squirrel. Why are term limits for the presidency constitutional, but not the other two branches, when the three branches are supposedly co-equal branches?
Of my pay grade. Yeah, I mean, the reality is there's a constitutional amendment, of course, that
which I understand by default makes it constitutional, but why is it constitutional? The Supreme Court has overruled things that were constitutional at one point, slavery.
But, yeah, all the time, right?
Yeah. I never understood, for me, if the three branches of government are co-equal, even though Congress is the Article 1 branch, the first among equals, why are term limits on one branch okay, but not the other two? I've never understood that.
I'll never understand it either.
And one of my favorite,
far smarter than I will try to explain it. I almost want to call like Jamie Raskin and be like, "Oh, I don't remember paying attention in law school. Just help me on this."
And one of my favorite things is, I lost train of thought. I think I lost my train of thought. Yeah. Oh no, one of my favorite things to mention, in the same vein as that argument, by the way, and I really took us down a rabbit hole here. When I get that pushback from the right side of the aisle, so to speak, whether they be still somewhat sane or properly out there, when we talk about the, inside the Democratic Party, is the inside, or get fireballs lobbed at us over the castle walls from the right about the socialist argument. We had a democratic socialist president in this country.
Good.
We had one. and he was elected 4 times.
Pretty popular guy.
Damn popular guy. And he was so damn popular that Republicans and corporate people had to change the Constitution itself to make sure it never happened again. Against you, folks. Against you. A very, very small group of people with an awful lot of money had to make sure that you didn't get a fair shake almost ever again. I say it
They're
every
beating them if they
George
wanted
has-
to.
George has the bingo card up because he's reading my mind. Remember when Saint Reagan, he says sarcastically, remember when Saint Reagan was running for the presidency? When asked why he wanted to be president, one of the reasons he wanted to was to, quote unquote, destroy everything that was left of the New Deal. It was the New Deal that made us, folks. It made the middle class, the largest middle class on the face of the earth, most prosperous nation in the history of the planet. And in 8 years, it was gone. And in the 32 years since, it has done nothing but erode. For the first time in our history, by the way, this stat was just released, I think, 3 weeks ago. Less than 50% of the people in the country are statistically, science, data, they are statistically and self-identify as middle class. Has not been that way since the institution of the New Deal. Think about that. 6:03 Eastern Time here on the Kennedy Effect, the 28th of March, 2021. Guess what, kids? If you're watching, the phone line is open. You can call the program. 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. It's a great phone number when I can actually read it. It's even better. And the amount of times that the guy who does radio can't speak or read, it's a little frightening. Maybe Citizens United had a point. Take the microphone away from that poor dude. 267-227-9189, 227-9189. Wherever you're watching on Facebook or listening in the background with the screen going, we're happy that you are there. Any group, Our Revolution Pennsylvania, the Lehigh Valley Progressive Network, the Easton Area Democratic Committee, the Bethlehem City Democratic Committee, Pennsylvania Democratic Politics, Election Integrity Arizona, the Las Vegas Medicare for All group. We have groups literally all over the country. We're proud, we're honored, we do really genuinely appreciate it. And I mean that wholeheartedly. We appreciate it. We are, to the best of my knowledge, and I mean this, and you may correct me if I'm wrong out there, world, we are the only live progressive media in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So take that to the bank, world. And we're proud of that. We're happy about it. That was the goal of this program in the first place, telling the truth, using science, facts, and data to educate you and inform you and help you make better decisions. And you don't have to agree with me. No one has to agree with me, ever, ever, ever. We only ask that you listen and think about what it is that we discuss on a weekly basis. If you don't agree, that's fine. You're an adult, or maybe you're not an adult, maybe you're a teenager, but you're a human being. You're allowed to feel and think whatever it is you wish. I just wish you listen and consider what it is that we discuss and talk about on a weekly basis. If you think about what it is that we cover after this program ends, or after you've listened for an hour, 2 hours, or whatever, and you have to walk away and you think about what it is that we discussed, then I'm good. Then we've accomplished something. We can walk away, disagree, still shake hands, hug it out. Well, when we used to be able to do such things, shake hands, hug it out, and we'll be friends at the end of the day. I'll be here for you and you'll be here for me. And that's why we're here. Hot101.net, main website, hot101.net, Apple App Store, Google Play Store for Android, on your phones, your tablets, your laptops, Bluetooth in the car, smart speakers, however it is you take us in. We appreciate it. We really are proud and honored to be part of the hot101.net family. There are more programs coming to hot101.net with hosts that have been born out of this program. I'm very, very proud of that, and you will be hearing more about that in the weeks to come. I know I've been teasing that for quite a while, but it's not always so easy to get all the electronics and get a home studio built and things like that. There's a lot of work involved, but we're working on getting some new programming coming to you with hosts born out of this program. We're very, very proud of that. Again, the live chat is open on the Facebook page. That other side of information. So continue to watch where you are, or please come visit the home group Facebook page. Put your questions, comments in there. I will read them, kick, scream, agree, disagree, make fun of my soccer jersey, whatever it is you wish to make fun of my gray hair, whatever it is you wish to do. That other side of information is the Facebook page. The Twitter, which, hey, we're keeping up with our record. Cool. No one's tweeted us. We're so proud. That at that Kennedy Talk, you can live tweet me right now. Same thing. Questions, comments, show suggestions, guest suggestions, anything like that. It's open. The Twitter is there for you to take advantage of. You can also email the program, thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. But the best way, and the way that I deeply encourage you to do so, is to call the program. You can do that. It's easy. No one will scream, yell, hurt you. It's painless. I promise you will be respected here. Give us your questions, your comments. Tell us what you're thinking. Ask Zach about his experiences on Capitol Hill. Do you have a curiosity question? Do you have a policy question? Do you want to tell me I'm full of you know what? Do you want to agree with me and tell me I'm devastatingly handsome? That's cool. I'll take it. Anyway, that said, let's get back into the questioning. This is, of course, my guest is my friend, which I'm very proud to say and humbled to say, is Zach Fowler, who's a former staffer for Susan Wild, representative in the United States House of Representatives from Pennsylvania's 7th Congressional District, which happens to be my congressional district, and she is my House representative. You were at the Capitol during an extraordinary time in U.S. history. We had, we end the last hour talking about a Democratic socialist president. He, of course, did not identify himself that way. But when we look at it through the lens of history, and when we look at it through, and try to take those policies and kind of put a ribbon on them, I think that might be the most apt description for it. The Scandinavian countries, Germany, France to an extent, Belgium and so on, still practice that same type of government. You were on the Hill for the final 2 years of what I would refer to as the first fascist president. You said that you made friends on the Hill, that you enjoyed your work there. You haven't been on the Hill as a part of the current Biden administration, so I can't quite ask you to compare. But, when you woke up in the morning, and I would kind of like to know the basics of like your day. I mean, did you work 16-hour days? Did you sleep? Did you lose weight? Do you remember what your wife looked like when you came home at the end of the day? I mean, was there this constant, since you were much more in the arena than the rest of the residents of the country were or are, and we certainly all felt this constant like, oh, okay, what did he do now? What did he tweet? What did he say? What department is he trying to tear down? What treaty did he unilaterally and illegally pull us out of? When you're there, what kind of pressure was there a constant like weight, or short breaths of like, okay, what's coming next? Or did you just go about your day? Were you relaxed? Were you so deep into the work, working for Representative Wild, that you got through your day okay? Was there a pressure? Tell me about your day. Tell me about what it was like for 2 years working on the Hill, even though you're working for a big D Democratic representative, but under a fascist executive branch.
Yeah, so I would get into the office. I'm an early riser, always have been. still do that today in the practice of law, doing litigation stuff. But on any given day, I'd be on the train by 6:30 in the morning, going from Silver Spring into DC. Would get in around 7:30, maybe a little before that, 7:15, 7:30 into the office. And an average day was, doing my committee work. We had a lot of stuff to do in my issue areas, my portfolios. And frankly, that was what preoccupied my time, whether it was working on drug pricing bills, whether it was working on child health care bills, working on trade deals, trying to find areas where we could agree and build enough of a consensus that it wouldn't go die in Mitch McConnell's graveyard of the Senate at the time. And that was what we tried to do. And the first person I would always call was, of course, staffers from Brian Fitzpatrick's office, who seemed to be the go-to Republican when you needed a token Republican on something that you were doing. So that was what I was singularly focused on. That being said, with the way the president conducted himself and his business, there were times where we had to drop everything. It was all hands on deck, and we had to respond to something he did or said. And that seemed to happen quite often, honestly, and it was distracting. And thankfully, we had a comms team that would get this stuff out. But it was a team effort to get a statement out, get it approved by the boss and everything, and have her okay it as well. But we tried our best to kind of ignore him. Frankly, we thought he was all kind of, and I still think this, he was all kind of show. I think that he was more of a symptom of Mitch McConnell's way of governing for the last 30 years. So we were more occupied with Mitch McConnell than we were with the president, honestly. We almost felt like the president got in the way more than anything else. And I think Mitch McConnell would actually agree with that. And a lot of Republicans would agree with that. He got in the way of what they were trying to do and got in the way of what we were trying to do. So basically he was useless. Terrible person, but useless.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm just empty, another empty soul. But did you see him as more of the way I personally saw him? And not because I saw him, it doesn't make me that smart, but I saw him in 17, and I guess a little bit into 18, when he was sworn in January 2017. In that early bit, especially as the cabinet was, approved in the blink of an eye, it seemed to me that most of the cabinet choices were people he didn't know. He couldn't have picked them out of a lineup. He didn't know who the hell they were.
Right, absolutely.
And they were chosen mostly by the Koch network, so far as I could tell. And I can't tell you that I sat here and did hours of research on it, but so far as I could tell, they were Koch picks. They were.
I would say maybe with the exception of Mattis. I think General Mattis was an okay guy.
But Priebus was in a stat with RNC, DeVos and all of these, Elaine Chao got put there by McConnell, but you could figure where most of these folks came from.
Sure.
Even Tillerson, I don't think he knew Tillerson. I don't think he would have known Tillerson if he tripped over him. They seem to me to be, well, you and I knew that. I bet you and I knew that more than Trump knew it.
Right.
I think they were, billionaire donor, Koch network, Adelson, Mercer, RNC choices. I mean, as I'm sure the Koch network has more permanent paid employees, larger staff, and turns over more money than both parties combined, even though there is only one Koch remaining. But the network they have built, again, Heritage Foundation, what used to be, that's what turned it, Cato used to turn into a Heritage Foundation. I could list all the groups. I'm getting a little blank on all the different groups that I think they're into Americans for Tax. Is it Americans for Tax Progress or Americans for Tax Fairness or something like that? They're into they're into all that. Alec, of course, they put a good bit of money into Alec. They did not found Alec. People seem to always think they founded it. It was founded before them, but they now are huge contributors into Alec.
Americans for Prosperity, was that one?
Yeah, it might be Americans for
Or
Prosperity.
something like that. Yeah.
You always name your group the opposite of what it really stands for.
Right.
You know, you
Good
always
branding.
yeah, you always do that. You know, the Green Alliance, and we, you know, fossil fuels are the future, natural gas is our future. You know, that kind of crap. But so did you see Trump as the useful tool of the billionaires? I saw him as that very early on, but as he I hate to say it, grew more comfortable in the job, realized the power he had, and then began to wield it. And I think that's when you started to see all the firings in the cabinet and the I'm gonna, you know, executive orders and just orders of departmental orders. I'm ordering you as a department head. I hired you to not enforce this law anymore, and things like that. Is that how you guys saw it? Am I misinterpreting what you're saying?
Yeah, that's how I saw it. He was a useful tool for them, at least in the beginning. You know, they got their tax cut that they wanted. They got the NAFTA 2.0 USMCA, which honestly was probably his biggest accomplishment, in my opinion. One that, you know, that a large number of Democrats could swallow, because the AFL-CIO kind of said, look, we're not going to oppose it anymore, because, you know, there's some improved labor provisions within it. But yeah, so he got those two things done for you know, the class of people that rule the country. So the billionaires could pay less taxes than they already do. So they got that done, and then after that, you know, their money's protected. They kind of were like, we'll just kind of tolerate Donald Trump's behavior. And as it progressed, Donald Trump just kind of fired everyone because he didn't like the way they talked about him, either to his face or behind closed doors. Didn't like all the stories coming out, so he, you know, got rid of them, and then all of a sudden he became, you know, kind of all powerful, all encompassing ruler. But thankfully, at that time, by the time that happened, the House had already switched back to Democratic control, and you know, he was ineffective. So really, he was an ineffective president. There's objectively speaking, even viewed in the light most favorable to Donald Trump, he was an ineffective president.
The total value, by the way, of the 2017 Trump Republican McConnell Paul Ryan, who was a often forgotten villain in this in the toxic soup that was that tax cut, the actual real value of that, it is generally reported as about 1.5 trillion. It's become about 2.2 trillion dollars. And remember, folks, that the 83% of that went to the top 1% and the largest corporations. The current corporate tax rate is now 21%. It has never been that low in the history of the United States. Remember, Trump flew down to Mar-a-Lago the day of the Rose Garden ceremony where he signed that tax cut and told a closed door room of millionaires and billionaires, I just made you a lot of money today.
Now deficits matter again.
You, by the way, that remaining, or the top 8, you know, that the remaining percentage of people who insist that they got a tax cut, you didn't. You got a re-engineering of your withholding calendar. And that's why you all owed a boatload of money when you filed your 2017 taxes in the spring of 2018. You got a re-engineering of your withholding table. You didn't get a tax cut. Sorry, kids, you didn't. Believe it or not, some small businesses did, and they were very favorable with that. Glad you did. But the corporations in the top 1% got pretty much all of it, not you. 2.2 trillion compared to what is now 1.7 trillion dollars in total student loan debt. But of course, we can't wipe away that, can we? Top 1% of the corporations needed their tax cuts. Think about that, folks. Think about it. was a study out of Princeton. Zach, you might be familiar with it. There were the two professors that ran it whose names are escaping me. I think it's Gibbons and something, and it was out of Princeton, that if you are in the top 10% of income earners in the country, you have an 80% chance of seeing the legislation that you want passed. But if you are in the bottom 50% economically, you have about a 10% chance of seeing that legislation passed. Is that not exactly what Citizens United has brought us?
Terrible. I'm not familiar with that study, but it sounds right to me. Yeah, it's a terrible reality, isn't it? And more critically, what doesn't pass, what they can kill. And that's what they're really good at. They're really good at killing legislation. The big dollar lobbyists are really good at killing legislation. H.R. 3, which in the 116th Congress was the Fair Drug Prices Now or something. I'm botching the name. It was the prescription drug bill that the speaker introduced. Did a lot of good things. Kind of got a little watered down, to be honest with you. A lot of people don't realize that HHS wasn't actually permitted to negotiate all drug prices. It was only a certain category of the most expensive, highest demand drugs that the HHS could negotiate. So that kind of got watered down. But by and large, it was a really decent piece of legislation in that it was endorsed by a lot of the patient advocacy groups out there. That thing died in the Senate, and I'm not so sure it would pass, even with full control of all the House, the Senate, and the White House. I hope I'm wrong. I could be wrong, but I'm not convinced we have the votes for that.
What is I think the easy answer is campaign money and campaign donations. I think sometimes, perhaps, unless I am misinformed or there's some explanation in this that I'm missing, and that's part of why I'm asking you. Outside of campaign money, like it's so easy to just take that and set it to the side. But I mean, if we were to step outside of campaign money and campaign donations, what is the resistance? We know what it is on the Republican side, it's corporate profit. But what is the resistance against trying to control pharmaceutical prices? It's very well documented about how much Americans pay for pharmaceuticals. You cited insulin earlier. A vial of insulin that they might pay $30 for in Canada,
$300
or $40 for in Europe, we pay $400 for here.
Right.
What is the opposition? What did you find to be the opposition?
So what I found to be the opposition was the talking point that was fed to me in so many meetings with big pharma lobbyists, and that was the innovation thing. And they had a story, an anecdote for everything that they told us, and they'd sometimes even bring people in, like, this life-saving innovative drug saved this person's life. What they don't tell you, though, and I think we talked about this once before, is that the taxpayers already funded the initial development of a lot of these drugs. NIH funding is taxpayer-funded research. And a lot of times these big pharma companies come and scoop up the intellectual property rights to these drugs. Now they have cornered the market where they can block generics from even coming to drive down the prices, and they can charge whatever they want. And so I got a sense that a lot of it was, fear that, this rare disease that had this drug developed for them, these drugs wouldn't come to market then, and we're hurting people as a result, which I don't find that to be the case, because other countries do medicine better than we do. That's a fact. We have really bad infant mortality rates. We have really bad healthcare outcomes. We're bad at it. We're bad at healthcare. So yeah, that's Let's say
worst
sometime.
among the worst among the Western industrialized, quote unquote, developed first world nations. We have the worst infant mortality rate, period. Which is even worse, by the way, for women of color. We have the worst healthcare outcomes. We spend the most by a shocking amount on our healthcare than any other nation on earth. And we are, and by the way, PolitiFact, I know you're not all a fan of PolitiFact out there, folks. We are the only nation on earth that handles healthcare the way that we handle it. A purely for, you know what? I'm wrong about that. It's not really purely when you consider the VA and Medicare, a predominantly for-profit model. For all of you out there who say, I don't want socialized medicine, and some of you, by the way, are also the I was going to say some really nasty words. You're also the same ones who say, keep your damn government hands off my Medicare. But we do have socialized medicine in this country already, by the way. It's called Medicare and the Veterans Administration.
Pretty popular.
Veterans Administration, by the way, is overwhelmingly popular among the people who use it. So we have it already. So let's not make it like this would be a whole new thing dropping out from another planet. What a wild, crazy idea. We are the only country in the world that has a predominantly for-profit incentivized healthcare system. We're better than this, folks. We're supposed to be the United States, the nation of can, not the nation of can't. We're supposed to be better than this. Our whole founding was better than this. But I apologize, Zach, I cut you off. But it's when you're sitting there in when you're sitting at your desk or a conference room or something inside Rep Wild's office, and you're a lobbyist from the American Pharmaceutical Association. I think that's a real thing, or did I make that up? No, it is the American Pharmaceutical Association, I think. And they give you that line. I mean, you're a straight talker. I mean, do you sit back in the chair and just giggle, or do you try to keep a straight face and like you're listening and like you care about the BS that's just been laid on you? I mean, you're a human being. I mean, and you're an educated human being. How do you have those conversations? I mean, do you look at the gentleman and say, Bill, that's a complete load of crap, and I know that, but I had to take the meeting, so here we are? Or do you say, well, gee, that's very super interesting there, Bill. Tell me your data on that. Or, I mean, how does it go? I mean, I'm trying to educate the folks and inform the folks that are watching, like, what is your day? I mean, clearly, Zach, you're not a dumb guy. Somewhere in your head, you're going, oh my God, what a bunch of BS that is. I mean, but what are you doing outwardly? Are you stoic and like, oh yeah, that's interesting. Or, do you call some of these folks out and go, I know that's crap. Like, I know all of what your lines are. It's all crap. I had to talk to you. So here we are. Do you want a cup of coffee? Let's just sit here for 15 minutes and you can be on your way. I mean, how does that go?
I was always very diplomatic about it. I was upfront with them saying, look, you're not going to convince me or Rep Wild to do what you want here. I appreciate that you want meetings with us. I'll always listen to whatever you have to say, but you're not going to convince us otherwise. And funny thing is, they never show me their profit statements. They never showed me what they spent on research and development for a given year. They never showed me what they spent in advertising in a given year. They're not going to, because it's proprietary, but they know what they're saying is a line of garbage. And what's really frustrating to me is that, well, before I get to that, so yeah, the meetings would be quick. They go about their way. I'd file that under the never ever will we ever agree to this, file it away as that, and my filing system would be to put it in the recycling bin, whatever they left behind. And then I would crack jokes with some of my other staffers, like, can you believe what they tried to sell me on? I have a great friend, Jan Skenazy, who's a great speechwriter, and he and I would get a kick out of some of the lines. And what baffles me is, these Republicans that are free market Republicans, there's nothing more antithetical to free markets than what big pharma does to block competitors from the market. It's like the exact opposite of a free market. A free market may actually be an okay thing if generics could get to market. They can't get to market.
If we had a free market, it might actually help, but we don't. We have a monopoly, or an oligopoly is the actual better term for it. But yeah, a very small handful of companies controlling a large percentage of the market is what we have.
Exactly right. And that was one of the biggest successes that, in my opinion, that Rep. Wild did. We pushed really hard on USMCA, the first draft of it from Lighthizer, who was the U.S. trade representative, would have granted 10-year exclusivity rights on pharmaceutical trade. And, we were kind of thinking, how does this have anything to do with what, NAFTA used to be and improving NAFTA? It wasn't in NAFTA. It makes matters worse. It's going to drive drug prices up for each of the countries. So we sat down with representatives from the Mexican government, from the Canadian government, and to a person, they said, we weren't the ones that insisted on that. The Americans were the ones that insisted on that. And so we led the charge with a bunch of freshman members. And it was really cool. It was, you saw like just a really cool number of members. You had Max Rose and AOC agreeing on that. Everybody was agreeing on it. So it was just trashed. And to her credit, we really pushed Representative DeLauro hard on it too. And the ultimate outcome was it was scrapped altogether. So the USMCA, scrapped that 10-year. I think it was a 10-year. It might have been 8. But in any event, it was an exclusivity provision that Big Pharma wanted. And they sneak into everything.
And Max would never be confused for AOC, by the way. I mean, yes, they're both Democratic members, but you would never confuse Max Rose on a policy standpoint for AOC. Let's be blunt about that.
And honestly,
they agreed on
bipartisanship to me was watching, FISA discussions. There's a letter that went around, the congressional letter about the FISA abuses, and the House Freedom Caucus had a lot of members. So like Matt Gaetz of the world signed on to this letter. Pramila Jayapal signed on to the letter. That's bipartisanship. The idea that bipartisanship is like, the conservative Democrats just spitting in the face of Rep. Omar or AOC or any of the squad really, and making like little sound bites and little digs here and there. That's not bipartisanship. Yeah, it might, pacify some people on the right that agree that these people are terrible, but it doesn't move the ball forward anyway. The real bipartisanship is, just that. That FISA thing was crazy. When I saw Matt Gaetz on that and saw Pramila Jayapal's name on that, I thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And it was great because there's legitimate reason to question the FISA process.
267-227-9189. The phone line is open, 267-227-9189. Are you a believer in this new, or what appears to be a new and growing definition of bipartisanship, when 90% of self-identified Republicans want to see expanded background checks for semi-automatic, weapons of war on the streets? That's bipartisan. When 72% of self-identified Republicans, and I say it that way because they don't think there are a lot of Republicans. I think they're just self-identified. They're doing what they're told instead of thinking for themselves. When they support the American Rescue Plan, that's bipartisan. When even, I think it's 57% of them, it might be 54, I'm working from memory, support Medicare for all. When 65-ish% support elimination of student debt, that's bipartisan. simply because McConnell herds his cats and none of them vote for it. What is your definition of bipartisan? Do you buy into this redefinition of what bipartisanship is that the Biden administration seems to be running with?
Yeah, I don't think bipartisanship in Congress exists, frankly. And they'll say that it does, and they'll have photo ops, stage photo ops of little minor things that get passed here or there. But at the end of the day, the donor class rules. So even in those situations where an overwhelming majority of American public supports something, if the NRA or the donor class does not, Mitch McConnell is really good at getting his people in line. And I would argue to you that, like him or not, he is the most effective Senate Majority Leader since Lyndon Johnson. I mean, he's good at what he does. It's evil and backwards and hurts people, but he is talented. And so, yeah, I don't believe that bipartisanship really exists. I think, it was great that President Biden believes that he can work across the aisle, and he may get an olive branch or two here or there. But look, not a single Republican voted for his plan. If he was as good at developing Senate relationships as he says he is, you'd expect at least one to cross the line. Nobody did, because bipartisanship doesn't exist anymore in the halls of Congress, in my opinion, and it's a shame. But yeah, I don't think that word means nothing to me anymore. And I hated hearing that word when I was working in Congress, because, I would occasionally get a Republican on one of the things I was doing. I got one Republican on the Chipper Act. It was the Child Health Insurance Program Pandemic Enhancement Relief Act or something like that. So it was an acronym. It was Chipper Act. And what it would do in the middle of a pandemic was make sure that a scheduled cut to the federal match rate in the CHIP program wouldn't go into effect in the middle of a pandemic. I searched high and low for a Republican co-sponsor and got one. We had 80 some co-sponsors, and I had one Republican. And on that Senate side, we had Senator Casey. We convinced Senator Casey to introduce as well. They had 0 senators that supported it. So, if you can't stop scheduled cuts in the middle of a pandemic for children, bipartisanship doesn't exist.
When you're working in the office building, perhaps you use the tunnel, you go to the cafeteria, lunchroom, whatever it is that you call it, commissary. It's time for lunch, and you sit down. Do you sit with staffers from Republican offices? Did you build friendships there, or was it that toxic that if you saw staffer Smith from, Louis Gohmert's office, and did you just look at him and go, wow, seriously? I mean, did you just kind of like, what are you doing? Like, what are you guys doing, man? Like, seriously, is this what we're, were you able to build, or could you talk with Republicans and Republican staffers and just kind of keep it to, wow, beautiful day out. Did you see the Nationals game? Something like that. I mean, how did you interact with staffers from Republican rep offices?
Yeah, it was mostly by email or phone calls. Honestly, it wasn't often by lunch. A lot of times, staffers actually eat lunch at their workspace, so they'll go down to the cafeteria and bring it back. That said, I had cordial relationships. I would even consider some friendly relationships with staffers in other offices. We worked with Dan User's office on a abandoned coal reclamation bill. And he was a nice enough guy, and worked a lot with Brian Fitzpatrick's office. Again, a lot of nice people in their offices. The times that we spent the most times, actually fraternizing were at, educational trips. We were allowed to go on certain educational trips if we got it cleared beforehand by the ethics committee. I went to Iowa for a biodiesel conference where they tried to sell me on the efficacy of ethanol, unsuccessfully, mind you. Not an Iowa boy, and I think ethanol is
Still pushing
kind
that.
of a joke. Yeah, right. But I get on a plane to go to Iowa, and sitting right next to me is another house staffer, and I introduced myself, and I can't remember his name at this point. And he says, "Oh yeah, I'm a staffer for Steve King." I'm like, "Geez, you got to be kidding me!" Out of all the staffers, I'm sitting next to Steve King staffer. So I try to engage him in conversation because I like to be friendly with everyone. I said, "Hey, do you like sports?" Like I'm a big Phillies fan. I don't really like sports. I put my earbuds in and said, "You know what? I tried." So sometimes you just can't build that bridge. But by and large, I try to make friends with everyone.
Are the staffers of the various representatives and perhaps even the Senate staffers that you may have had engagement with, are they ideological? I mean, are Republican representatives and senators hiring Republicans in their staff, or are some of the staffers just, look, I'm just trying to do a job in government because I care about people? Or are they craven young kids out of college? I'm going to be president someday and I'm going to crush all the individuals below me, the peasants and whatnot. I mean, is it, I'm being a bit ridiculous, but you understand what I'm saying. Is it like, what is it? You're a progressive person yourself. You worked for a Democratic representative. So if I was to go to throughout the Democratic caucus, especially the Progressive Caucus, which I was always disappointed Rep. Weil didn't join, by the way, the Progressive Caucus. And I was always disappointed that she didn't do a spot with Hartman every other week or whatever that some of the Progressive Caucus, Procan does an hour a week, and Rep. Rokana, who's originally from Pennsylvania, by the way, does every other week. Pramila Jayapal does. Bernie did a week for like 15 years with Tom Hartman. Frankly, I wish she'd do an hour here. But are they all progressives? Is Pramila Jayapal's staff all flaming progressives? Is Mark Procan's all flaming progressives? Is Steve, well, he's not there anymore. It was Louis Gohmert's all, dead red. Your skin looks a little dark, son. I should shoot you. Is it that bad, or are they more? Is there some career folks in there? Is there, what are we talking about?
Yeah, so the career folks tended to be more committee staff. So a lot of like the Education and Labor Committee staffers were more career, and it waxes and wanes. You have more staff when you're in the majority and less staff when you're not. I would say that by and large, the staff is representative of the politics of the member. That said, there are exceptions to that rule. There are offices that are like what Rep. Weil tried to create, which is a diversity of opinion and a team of rivals, so that we could debate things. Sometimes, debate was stifled out of necessity to get things done. Sometimes it was stifled for other reasons, but for the most part, we tried to have debate. But I would say that there were some Republican staffers who were not Republicans. They were young college kids that got their foot in a congressional office door. There was a lot of 21, 22-year-olds that, hey, look, I got a job as, a clerk or whatever the job title is for a member of Congress. That'll look good on a resume. But yeah, I would say by and large, it's pretty representative of the member.
Let's talk a bit about unions.
All right.
We're seeing tomorrow actually is when the votes are due to arrive for the unionization effort at the Amazon fulfillment center in Bessemer, Alabama. And I got to be honest with you, and you may even agree, of all of the Amazon buildings, and there's probably triple digit numbers of them, of all the ones that I thought would have a union effort first, it wasn't going to be Bessemer, Alabama, I guarantee you. I would have chosen a Michigan or a Massachusetts, New York State, New Jersey, perhaps. Not Bessemer, Alabama, I can guarantee you. California, Washington, Oregon, something like that. That said, votes are due in tomorrow. I believe it is. They're using mail-in voting. Heaven forbid. My goodness, they're using that corrupt and evil thing called mail-in voting. The same thing Trump uses. It's been my belief, if this building, if they unionize, it is going to, I don't think it's hyperbole. I think it's going to fundamentally change the economy in this country. I think it is yet another break, another, death by 1,000 paper cuts of Reaganism. I think it's a real sea change. I think it could be a real course change, a real 90-degree for the economy in this country if that building approves the union. What are your thoughts?
Boy, I hope you're right. Strengthen union. I totally agree.
My gut is that the union will prevail, but I'm asking really more, let's assume that they do prevail and that the Bessemer, the Amazon Bessemer, Alabama building unionizes. I believe that will be the first Amazon building, and all the rest of them will, of course, will go in a domino effect.
Right.
But I think it will be a real sea change for the greater economy in this country. When Reagan took power, private sector union membership was just under 38%. I think it was 37.4%.
Mm-hmm.
It is now under 6%, 5.6, I believe. He destroyed unions and did it intentionally. He did it to drive down wages. He did it to destroy the middle class because the rich and the largest corporations were worried, going back to the Powell memo. Look, these middle class, they're getting too much wealth. And with wealth comes political power. And we don't want them running things. We should be running things. Powell tried to get the U.S. Chamber to start getting politically active. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, they were never politically active before that. They were lobbyists. They supported the businesses that were members, but they were never politically active. They didn't endorse candidates. They didn't spend money in elections. He changed that. He got the rich and the big corporations in this country to start spending money. He was on the Supreme Court for the Bellotti decision, if I'm not mistaken. Is this effort, if Bessemer gets a union, is this not kind of Reaganism in reverse? Is this not a real sea change against Reaganism and a return to some, win for the little guys, some New Deal union building? Hell, Eisenhower ran for re-election in 1952. I expanded union membership in this country. Is Bessemer that big of a deal? I think that it is.
Yeah, it would be a heck of a win for the little guy. I think you might be a little bit more optimistic than I am about a sea change, and the reason for that is the NLRA still is a piece of legislation without teeth, really. What businesses have decided is that it is in their financial best interest in some cases to have unfair labor practices, because by the time it's litigated, there's no punitive recourse, it's actual damages kind of stuff. They make a business decision that, yeah, okay, whatever, we get a slap on the wrist. We've drawn it out for all these years. At least we didn't unionize and lose money that way. So the NLRA is kind of a bill without, or kind of a law without teeth. And so I think that while it will be a good first start and maybe encourage others to unionize, there are still dilatory tactics that employers can take under the NLRA that'll frustrate unionization elsewhere.
Define that act for our viewers and listeners.
Yeah, National Labor Relations Act is what that act is. And so there's a lot of things in that act that are problematic, not the least of which is just the fairness of the election itself. An employer can do as many captive audience speeches as they would like to, which is basically where they force their workers to sit down and listen to anti-union rhetoric to convince them not to join a union. Now, they're not supposed to threaten or coerce. We know that they do. And again, they make that a business decision saying, hey, if it's adjudicated that we did an unfair labor practice years down the line, so be it, at least we don't have a union. So the act permits employers to do that. It does not let unions have the same captive audience speeches. They can't force employees to sit down and listen to pro-union stuff. So it's basically a one-sided argument throughout. So that's one problem. Of course, the remedies aren't sanctioned or punitive to like deter bad behavior. So there's a lot that's wrong. The National Labor Relations Act, which is supposed to protect workers from unfair labor practices. It also protects, from abuses by the unions as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can file unfair labor practices against unions as well. But that act just doesn't do it. And frankly, it's been weakened with every right to work state. And I would actually submit to you that, the fact that they're trying to unionize in Alabama is an indictment of how poorly right to work states have worked out for these states. They make less money. I mean, that has to make those workers terribly upset. Look at their northern contemporaries doing the same job, making more money. That has to really get at them after a while. So, I think you're maybe a little bit more optimistic than I am, but I do think there's good legislation out there right now. If the PRO Act can get through, that would be amazing. I wish that Biden would have appointed a more pro-labor labor secretary. I was a big proponent of even, a Richard Trumka, who was the president of the AFL-CIO. I wanted somebody that had that kind of union chops sitting in the labor department, because for so long, the labor secretary has been balancing and not balancing it well, labor rights with employer rights. It's not the Department of Employer, it's the Department of Labor. I was a little disappointed that Biden didn't go with a really stronger union guy. But yeah, I think the PRO Act would be instrumental. It gets rid of right to work states. It forbids captive audience speeches. It requires the NLRA or NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, to step in and get injunctive relief immediately when there's an unfair labor practice. There's a lot of good stuff in that PRO Act. It stops the misclassification of workers as independent contractors, right? So there's this idea that employers have concocted that, hey, if we call a worker an independent contractor, they don't have any labor rights. Where when in reality, we're controlling them just the same as we would control our employees. Without the PRO Act, I don't think that this is going to be, a change that sweeps the country. I do think it's a good first start. It may convince others to unionize, but there's work to be done for sure.
So what is it that you're not as optimistic about as I, that if they unionize, that it will, that it won't be the change that I think it will be, or are you not as optimistic that they will even approve the union there? Or do you think Amazon will just shut the building down and run away, which is supposed to be illegal, but whatever.
Right. Who cares, right? They're worth billions of dollars. They get slapped on the wrist by the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, and they say, okay, we'll just operate elsewhere. We're making a ton of money. I'm optimistic that workers are going to want to unionize. I'm just not optimistic that workers in other plants and other states will also exercise their right to unionize, because I think if in Alabama they unionize, you're going to see a crackdown by Amazon, more than they've already done, to prevent it in other places. And until we get a change in the law where it really is a punishment for having unfair labor practices, I just don't see how, our labor laws are going to change so fundamentally that the economy is going to shift back to, a predominantly middle class economy like it was when union membership was at an all-time high. I just don't see it happening. Maybe I'm pessimistic.
Well, it's a bummer. I'm rarely optimistic. I mean, rarely. Those who know me will tell you that I'm rarely optimistic, but I just think it's going to be. I guess maybe I'm getting way out over my skis, and I don't. But I just think if that plant goes, I do see other plants going. It's certainly not all of them, because I think there are certainly places that will buy the rhetoric. You know, if it's other places, even in Alabama, certain, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, the Panhandle of Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, God knows, they're still fighting the war. I mean, they're still fighting the war. Look what happened at the Volkswagen plant in Tennessee.
Right.
But I think there's other places that will say, look, they did it, we can do it. Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, the New England states, down in Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, maybe even some places here in PA, especially in the traditionally union areas, the Lehigh Valley, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Erie, Center County, the Washington, Oregon, California, possibly even a place like Arizona, that some of the purple states. I'm hopeful that it'll signal a change. I do know, and then to take it a step further, Amazon can't close them all.
Right.
Can't close them all. And they're not going to rely on the vendors themselves to do all the shipping. That's why they started doing the shipping themselves. So they can't close them all. But from a labor standpoint, as part of your portfolio, where did you and where did Rep Wild come down on fighting the blatant, really obvious result? I think if we've seen any change in the Republican corporation over the last few years, it's the obviousness with which they do things. They don't, when we talk about voter suppression, they don't even hide it anymore. They talk about, when we look at their obvious support for gun manufacturers, it's just not, we don't hide it or hide it in flowery language anymore. It's just right there. When we talk about trying to continue to suppress and shove women back barefoot pregnant in the kitchen, we don't hide it anymore. The hypocrisy, we don't hide it anymore. We're just out there. Republicans are just out there. How did you and Rep Wild deal with the open and blatant assault that goes back to the George W. Bush administration? I understand that you guys obviously weren't on the Hill at that time, but because unions tie into this, I think it's to try to destroy one of the the largest government union that exists still. The attack on the Postal Service. And when we talk about hypocrisy, by the way, to even take this beyond union, the attack on unions, the Postal Service, by the way, mentioned specifically in the Constitution, but yet Republicans who just love the Constitution, oh, well, we don't like it when it comes to that because they're unionized. Where did you guys try to fight and stand up for the Postal Service?
One of the proudest things from Rep Wild's office was there wasn't a lot that our whole office agreed on, but labor was the one thing that we all agreed on. And she actually showed up to the postal office, the local postal service office in the Lehigh Valley with Senator Casey demanding answers, and they were blocked from it, which is hilarious that a sitting U.S. senator and sitting U.S. congresswoman can't get in and get answers is ridiculous and shows that something nefarious was going on there.
In fact, if I remember correctly, please correct me, Zach. I'm not sure if you were there on that trip.
I was not.
I remember reading the reporting. This was when Trump and DeJoy started ordering postal distribution centers or sorting centers to not just remove those sorting machines that, by the way, folks, are worth tens of millions of dollars each. not just remove them, but literally dismantle and destroy them and sell the metal off for scrap so that they couldn't be reinstalled. And if I remember the reporting correctly, Representative Wild showed up at the Lehigh Valley hub.
Correct.
I am forgetting, you just reminded me that Senator Casey was with her. I had forgotten the part. She wanted to go in and see the facility. They said, you can't come in. She asked them about the removal of sorting machines, and they said, we haven't removed any machinery. And she literally pointed to the back of the building and said, sitting right over there, I can see it.
Right.
Am I remembering that correctly?
I believe you are. And that's just what's so ludicrous about it. They weren't even as you said, they weren't even trying to hide it. Like at that point, they had laid the framework and the groundwork for contesting the election on grounds that mail-in voting is unreliable and fraudulent. And then they knew that it wasn't, and they were going to lose. So they said, you know what, we're going to make it really hard for people to vote. And that's what they did. And that is absolutely what they did. So yeah, Rep. Wild was very on top of that issue in particular. She was super on top of, she was, original co-sponsor of the PRO Act, original co-sponsor of Butch Lewis, which I'm very happy was passed into law with the most recent COVID package. And for the listeners, Butch Lewis Act basically saves failing and close to insolvent multi-employer pension plans. Workers who have worked their entire lifetime for these pension plans were at risk of losing them. So that's great. But yeah, we worked on those issues. Rep. Wild, of course, worked on making the USMCA better. AFL-CIO was really instrumental in pushing for, confirming that Mexico was adhering to their end of the bargain, that they were in fact raising their labor expectations and labor rights of their workers so that our workers could be more competitive in America.
Did she confirm that Mexico was not paying for the wall?
Yeah, right. Funny thing, it's really hard to get somebody to pay for something that they don't want.
Right. Yeah, I know it. It's true.
Funny thing.
I don't need, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Before
Crazy.
an overdue reset, I was due for a reset at 6:30. I didn't do it, and we're past the top of the hour. I do want to ask you just something quick, going back to that Rep. Wild's visit to the Lehigh Valley postal, sorting facility. Representative Wild is not a police officer. Neither is Senator Casey. But when the postmaster of that facility, and I don't know the political persuasion of that postmaster. I don't know if he was appointed by the Trump regime or if he worked up from letter carrier back in the Nixon administration and worked his way up, or her way up. I honestly don't know that. I truly do not know that. But when Representative Wild and Senator Casey are lied to their face, we haven't removed any equipment from this facility. It's right there. I can see it. Why are there no repercussions for those folks? Why does Rep. Wild not go to whatever appropriate authorities there might be? And again, my question is a little lacking because I don't know the mechanisms. I truly don't. So I know my question is a little empty in that regard, but why is that not then pursued? Simply because we made it through the election and we have a President Biden, two members of Congress, a sitting U.S. House member and the senior senator, were lied to their face by a government official who took the oath. Why does that just die right there?
The easy answer was at the time, Donald Trump was president. So yeah, both. I believe, now I'm not positive, I believe Senator Casey was on record as saying this. I know Rep. Wild was, that DeJoy has to go. And they demanded his firing, but, Trump wasn't going to do that. And it's actually hard to fire the Postmaster General, right? There's a different mechanism that I'm not completely clear on.
It's the board of governors and so on. But what about the postmaster in that facility?
Right.
Why is that
Yeah.
off the hook?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I guess
I
that's a question for their employer.
And I don't know either. To be fair, it's not like you're the only one that doesn't know. I don't know either, but I'm just saying, if it was you or I mean, we'd be tossed out on our bum. We'd be fired at least. If at your law firm you had some egregious failure in a case,
Right.
or you failed in a case and your superiors, the partners came to you and said, "What the hell happened here, Zach?" And you lied about it. It
Right.
talks about in your ear. I mean, if not, go further and try to get you disbarred. I don't know why that. And if someone wants to correct me, I'd be thrilled if they could tell me, because I'm telling you, I'm admitting right now that I do not know this. That person might still be in charge of that sorting facility, and they lie.
It may be a good person, good employee, for all I know, that it was just scared of political repercussions. So, would I condone the lying? No, but if you're working a job that pays only okay and you have mouths to feed, I kind of get it. Like, I'm afraid of getting fired. I'll lie so that I can keep food on the table for my family. I kind of get it. And frankly, I don't think Rep. Lyle would have been okay with trying to get some just a worker fired. But what you do need is to hold those that are making the decisions accountable.
It's long past time. 7:08 Eastern Time here on the Kennedy Effect for the 28th of March, 2021. My dear friend Zach Fowler has been my guest and will be, what it looks like to the end of the program, at least, because we're going to enter a big topic here for the final hour of the program. That other side of information is the Facebook page. Hot101.net is the main website. Apple App Store and Google Play Store for Android, he tried to say. And the Tune In radio app to listen to hot101.net. And you should be doing that, not just for this show, but all the time. Quality, hardworking, talented people all over hot101.net, unlike me. Really great folks there, and I'm proud to be part of it. That other side of information, the home group Facebook page, enter the chat there. And of course, the phone line is open. You can see, Zach, how much has been ringing off the hook so far. You can see why the phone line is the bane of my existence. The phone line is the thing that keeps this program from being a 5-day-a-week program. So perhaps there's a bit of a conspiracy going on here, some type of controversy.
I would love to be challenged. Look, I'll listen to challenge.
I will investigate that shortly. I want to get into what am I missing? Was there some other I was missing? Oh, the phone line itself. I should probably give that. I can't complain about it if I don't give you folks the number. The phone, if you're watching anywhere that you might be watching, he said, across the Facebook universe, the phone number is on the screen. 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189, hot101.net family, wherever you are listening. Scribble down that phone number, 267-227-9189. This is your opportunity to ask someone who's truly been inside baseball a real question about really how your capital works, how the insides work on your seat of power, the national capital, the first among equals, the Article 1 branch. 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. Again, I've walked you guys through this before, just a free, simple little software program, Google Voice. We can take one phone call at a time. Give us a call. Give us your first name, where you're calling from, and it's all, and don't swear, and it's all yours. Just have at it. Ask a question, scream, kick, agree, disagree, whatever. Ask a question. Join the conversation. This is a talk show. It's your program. I have the big ego and the big mouth, and I can't shut up, but it's your program. Join us. Be a part of the program. Zach, I saved the big, no pun intended, I saved the elephant in the room for the final bit of the program, and that is our beloved Democratic Party. You and I are progressives. We believe in the progressive movement. I want to ask you a little something about semantics first. When we had a chance to talk Friday, I mentioned this. I've begun to get a tiny bit almost sick of using the word progressive, or a little annoyed by it. I think there are, first off, I think there's too many. Believe it or not, I think there's too many progressive grassroots groups. I think we could do with a lot of consolidation in that, since there's thousands of groups seemingly all trying to do the same thing, rather than maybe there only being about 100 groups with a heck of a lot more members trying to do those same things. So that's a tad annoying. But it seems to me that the progressive movement, and my wording is not going to be elegant, and it's not exactly going to express what I'm trying to say, but it seems to me that the progressive movement is really nothing more than a want, a wish, a work toward returning our party to its New Deal roots. I don't feel that progressivism is new. I don't think it's particularly revolutionary. Jefferson and Madison wanted the progressive tax system. They wanted the estate tax. They wanted the inheritance tax. Jefferson started a free university. Teddy Roosevelt, the national park system, broke up the monopolies and the trusts, took on big businesses, taxed them. The Antitrust Act. Not a perfect man. So everybody, by the way, relax, take a deep breath. I get it. Not a perfect man. Not necessarily the most race-conscious guy on the planet. I get it. Obviously, FDR, the New Deal, the government as the employer of last resort, put money directly in people's pockets by doing the work that corporations would not do. Parks, schools, post offices, roads, dams, electrical systems, water systems, just building projects all across the country. And by the way, perhaps the first environmentalist president who solved the problem of the Dust Bowl in the center of this country. John Kennedy, the moonshot, and every massive government spending to put people on the moon, and all of the science that brought us. The Peace Corps, taking American values in a peaceful way across the globe and showing countries and indigenous peoples and poor countries all over the planet what Americans were really about. And of course, the Great Society of Lyndon Johnson. So I don't think progressivism is anything new. It's the same. We're advocating those same policies and principles from those eras. What is the state in your mind of our party today?
I think it's in better shape than it was in 2016. But I'm with you. I'm kind of tired of the term progressive too, because what we're asking for isn't anything that we haven't had before. Now, granted, it would be bad to call ourselves the regressives, but really what we want in large part is what we had before and what worked before. You see no clearer picture of that than, let's say, the Voting Rights Act that we are still fighting for after that awful decision from the Supreme Court. I'm drawing a blank on the name of it. But, you know, what we have is a group of Democrats. Some are more inclined to want to go do what worked economically anyway. Now, granted, there were things that needed to be improved back in those days, race relations and all those things. But economically, we have the blueprint of what worked before and what grew the middle class. Yeah, so I'm kind of sick of the term progressive too. I don't think there's anything progressive about it. I would say it's more of just wanting to fight for the little guy and caring about people. I wish that there was a better terminology for that, a better thing that we could say, but really it's about that. And it bothers me that progressives have been painted as extreme. That AOC is somehow extreme, that it's extreme to say that a living wage and not being condemned to poverty is extreme. I think it's extreme to suggest that she's extreme. That it bothers me that paid family sick leave is considered extreme when every other country, that is developed has paid sick leave. Healthcare for every man, woman, and child is extreme. No, it's extreme to oppose that. So I kind of don't like the term progressive for those reasons. I think that we've lost the fight for that label, and that we need just a reset on branding, because the message is right, the branding is wrong.
I understand that as a candidate, I've been a candidate. I advise candidates. I tried to empower and develop people to be better candidates. I understand as a candidate, at least in the, maybe I'm being a little timey-wimey here, but, marching up on stage behind that lectern and pounding it and saying, let's march ourselves back to the past, usually isn't the best message. But and maybe I'm kind of rephrasing and repeating the question I just asked you, but really isn't progressivism just, it's taking what we know works. The New Deal worked. It worked. It created the largest, longest, most expansive period of prosperity in the country's history. The largest middle class, peace, expanded wealth, and the bit of the New Deal that a large section of people don't want you to know is that some of the largest multinational corporations were created during the New Deal. Some of the richest folks on the planet were created during the New Deal. Isn't really progressivism just that?
I totally agree with you. It's a recognition that we shouldn't be declining the expansion of Medicaid. Medicaid's worked. Medicare has worked. You can improve it, but why would we dismantle it? Why would we not? Why are there states that are refusing to expand Medicaid? I mean, these are programs that were passed by progressives, and they worked. They worked. Whether it was FDR's New Deal or LBJ's Great Society, they worked, and they're popular. And then there's, a group of elected officials that are actively working to undermine them and dismantle them, while I think progressives are trying to build upon them. I mean, if Medicare works, isn't there a way that we can get Medicare to more people? There is. So it's frustrating, to say the least. I think the state of the Democratic Party is frustrating. I think that for every true progressive out there, there's another one that is more intent on keeping the status quo as it exists currently, rather than as it existed, during the New Deal and Great Society. So, I'm optimistic in that we've won back the House, we've won back the Senate, we've won back the White House. But I'm a little pessimistic in that we didn't make the gains we expected. And I think a lot of that was because we ran against Donald Trump as he's evil, vote for us. When really what people want to hear is, I'm struggling to make ends meet. How are you going to put more money in my pocket? I'm struggling to afford healthcare and I'm sick. How are you going to make me healthy? We didn't focus enough on that. We completely got lost in the discussion. It was more, Donald Trump's a bad guy. And he was a bad guy and he deserved to lose his job. But then we lost seats in the House because we didn't focus on it.
He still is a bad guy. Don't worry.
Right, exactly.
Sold, don't worry.
But we lost seats in the House, I think. And I would love to know your thoughts.
Why
did we lose seats in the House?
Let me ask you about that. Let me play devil's advocate. Actually, maybe it's not even devil's advocate, because I'm not even, outside of gerrymandering, I'm not sure how to square these two things. And I'm actually kind of not really sure how to square these two things. She has become the poster child for it. I'm not sure it's fair. but Abigail Spanberger was quite vocal after the 2020 cycle. Well, during her reelection, that we can't run on Medicare for all. We can't run on eliminating student debt, blah, 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 blah. It's Republican light. I have been, if this, in fact, I would postulate that if it was the 1950s, she would be an Eisenhower Republican. I almost lost my train of thought. Where was I going? That even though those stats that we were talking about earlier about how even self-identified Republicans support Medicare for all and elimination of student debt, taxing the rich at a much higher rate. You know, AOC won her reelection by, was it 70? I think it was 70 to 30 or something outrageous like that. And that all of the Democrats who ran for reelection or election, because I think there were some both there, to the House of Representatives, to the United States House of Representatives, who did not sign on to Medicare for all, lost. All of them. So if we take those stats, combined with the fact that the Democrats who did not support Medicare for all lost, but yet these Republicans who quite literally have no platform other than Democrats are evil, Satanists, socialists, they want to kill your babies. One, how do we square that?
Yeah, it may come back honestly to the idea of bipartisanship and whether or not you really believe that swing voters exist in substantial enough numbers to make a difference. I'm of the belief that while there are swing voters, they tend to be negligible. There are far more people that don't participate in our electoral process that we should be speaking to and encouraging them to get out to vote than it is trying to convince people coming further and further and further and further to the right. I went in the wrong direction, actually. Going further and further and further to the right to try to pick off a few swing voters. There are more non-voters than there are true swing voters. Why aren't we targeting these people with these overwhelmingly popular programs, these progressive programs that say, hey, look, this is how we can improve your life, but you have to get out and vote. Get those people that haven't participated before. And I think we win a lot of elections. I think we lose a lot of elections by saying we have to convince these swing voters to vote for us. So let's be milquetoast, boring, moderate candidates. I think that's how you lose elections. And I think that's how you lose the progressive movement. And that's just how I look at politics. I know that there's a lot of people that are way more politically astute than me that say we have to target every type of voter and convince those that voted for Trump to vote for Biden, all that stuff. I just don't think they exist in great enough numbers for us to not go sell progressive policies to those that aren't participating in the political process.
It's been my experience that voters will always vote for the real thing rather than the fake thing, even if they hate the real thing. If a Democrat was to run against someone as just as reprehensible as Scott Perry and then act like Scott Perry, they're going to vote for Scott Perry because at least they know Scott Perry and he's the real thing. He's a diehard. He's red to the soul. He's a vapid, evil, fill in the blank with expletives guy. He just is. I told the story last week of, I believe you may know him, of Cole Goodman, who approached Doug Mastriano and said, look, I'm a Democrat. I'd like to have a civil conversation with you about some of the things that are coming up in the Senate. And Mastriano said, I ain't here for you, and blew him off. So we know, but if somebody as a Democrat ran like Mastriano against Mastriano's going to win because at least he's the real deal.
think you're right.
He's evil, and he's just a nasty piece of business, as we say in the old Irish. He's just a nasty piece of work. But his nastiness is bloody authentic. So he's going to win that. So are you talking about, when you're talking about the, chasing voters or the quote unquote swing voters, are you talking about standing in front of the quote unquote independents or the non-affiliated and just saying, look, I know y'all voted for Republicans in the past, but guess what? Or maybe I should turn the tables and say, when those independents go, oh, you want to raise you're for Medicare for all. Yeah, I am. Yeah, yes, I am. Because it helps you. And because that guy, now I'm going the wrong direction. Let me point to my right, which is probably left for you. Let me point to my right and say, because that guy and his quote unquote party, which is now a corporation, by the way, went to court to strip you of your health care. Period. Again, the Democratic Party's not perfect, but we're the only party left. We're the only functioning political party left, and we're the only ones trying. That guy doesn't want you to have public education, period. He doesn't believe in it. Thinks government has no role in it. Thinks if you can't pay for it, and if it's not profitable, you don't get it. Healthcare, if it's not profitable for the provider, you can't afford it, you don't get it. Thinks if you're not a middle-aged white male, circa maybe 1846, you don't get to vote. But if you want 37 AR-15s, here you go, kid. Have at it. Is that your position? We have to stand up here and say, it's that, or you may not agree with me on everything, but actually, let me take it to a couple extra steps for the rural voters. Fracking on your farmland, folks. So you can't plant anything. You can light your drinking water on fire. Can't drink that anymore. 30, 35, 40, 45 kids in your classroom. I mean, I could go on. Certainly higher education for profit. I mean, I could keep going. Trillions for the military. You don't get a living minimum wage. Heaven forbid you would need your Social Security. Nope, let's hand that over to Jamie Dimon so he can invest it. He'll lose it. And then if he does, you don't get it. Oh, too bad. Too bad. Too bad. Jeff Bezos only pays Social Security tax on his first $137,000. You on all of your income. All of it.
Yep.
Is that the case that you're making? Because that's the case that I've made. Stand up there, tell them who the hell you are, and tell them the truth. And if they don't vote for you, then I know it looks like a sore loser. This I've really taken a lot of abuse for. Then tell them the day after Election Day, or if it's 6 months from then, when Perry tries to strip them of everything, say, sorry, sometimes you get the government you voted for.
Totally. I think you go to the people like the independents and the perhaps swing voters, and you stake out your position clearly. You don't do this, let's go back to the center. Like, I hate that. Like, we won the primary by saying certain things. Now let's kind of meander back to the middle to appease these people. No, you tell the potential swing voter and the independent voter, this is what I stand for. I stand for Medicare. And this is how it'll help you. If they choose not to vote for you, so be it, they weren't going to vote for you. My thing is, you say that to them, and then you go knock on the door of the person that hasn't ever voted. And you say, this is what I stand for. You get yourself registered. You get to the polling place. I'll make sure I make your life better. Start participating. And you go and try to encourage the people that aren't participating to participate, because those are the truly gettable people in significant numbers that will change the direction of this country. And the independent that has voted red and blue at different times, let them make their decision. Let them sit on the fence and make a decision. Are they going to vote for me, or are they going to vote for the guy that's going to take away their health care? Fine, you know. But I want people to, I want progressives that are running to not be scared of running on their platform come the general. Because look, there might be some swing voters out there, but now that you're meandering to the middle, you're not doing the things that you promised to do during the primary. And it's why people hate politicians. You know, they'll say one thing to one group of people and they'll say something else to another group of people. I'm with you. Authenticity is the real deal. And, you know, Scott Perry is authentic. He's authentically terrible, but he's authentic. You know, why not be authentically awesome and then run on how authentically awesome you are? And that, I'm with you. I think that's how you win elections, and that's how you win. That's how you create movements.
267-227-9189, 267-227-9189, 227-227-9189. I promise I won't bite if you call. I promise, I promise, I promise. This might be, again, at risk of asking you the same question, but in a different way. This is something that Tom Hartman has postulated before. He is absolutely my radio, talk show idol. I wish if my program was an nth as successful as his, I'd be a happy man, and I'd have a career doing this instead of going to work for a living. I'd be happy having a hell of a lot more fun. I do this 5 days a week, doing what he's doing, not copying it because I think I'm a lot more animated than he is, but still, it's a nice template. That's for darn sure. But he has postulated and said before that he does these little recorded bits, sometimes in between transitions and breaks, in between commercial breaks and so on. And this one particular recorded bit is, I saw John Kasich on CNN the other night talking about, Democrats need to listen to rural voters. No, you know what? We need to go out and talk to rural voters and remind them of who we are and what we did for them. We brought you electricity and telephones and schools and roads and dams and saved your farmland and built you post offices and on and on. Again, all the stuff from the New Deal, some of which, by the way, people forget. By the way, the Rural Electrification Authority still exists. The Tennessee Valley Authority still exists, by the way. And when I make that argument, people, you can't talk to rural voters that way. They won't take it. Or, yeah, but that was the New Deal that was, 90 years ago. Okay, let's move it to today. We're the party that believes you should get a public education for nothing, for free, because you're paying taxes already anyway. That education is not a for-profit industry. That healthcare is not a for-profit industry. That really, 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 really wealthy people should finally pay again the way they did before 1980. The top marginal tax rate when Reagan took office was 74%. I think there was still a lot of rich people then. There was still big damn corporations in this country then. We think your land should be clean enough that you can grow things on it. That coal mines shouldn't be able to dump their ash in the river. And that your river water shouldn't have mercury in it. That your fish shouldn't have mercury in it. We understand that 96% of all the mammals on Earth are humans and their livestock. Maybe it should be a little better than that. We know solar panels work. We just do. And that the answer to global warming is not let's block the sun. It's let's stop burning what's causing it. We think you should actually earn $15 because, by the way, some of you, a good portion of you, the union members, You were earning $15 before Reagan, not inflation adjusted 15, literally 15. And you're not now. That's who we are.
$20 an hour.
I mean, that's who we are. Do you think, again, at risk of asking you the same question in a different way, isn't that the approach we should be taking? And then if you don't listen or you don't believe it, or that's not what Sean Hannity told me, good, then suffer the same crap you've been suffering.
I totally agree. Because what's the alternative? Is the alternative to move to the right and not try to help the people out that you're speaking directly to in that instance? You know, that's just a self-defeating prophecy right there. You know, let's be clear. You know, being a milquetoast, middle of the road politician that's just going to say whatever the farmer in central Pennsylvania wants to hear isn't going to get that farmer's vote doing it that way. They're going to read through that because they're going to see you as just another politician. Again, going back to the authenticity thing, I totally agree with you on that. I think voters may not be following politics very closely and the nuances of policy, but they can sniff out somebody that's not authentic. And you know, I think that's the reality that we live in. And yeah, I would agree with you. Just go right up to them. Tell them what you stand for. Tell them how it impacts their life. And if they say no, so be it. You go try to find another voter out there that wants to improve their lives in those ways.
Why do you think AOC is such a polarizing figure?
She's young and talented and female. You know, I hope that I teach my 3-year-old son to be as big of a feminist as any female feminist out there. You know, I get the sense that a lot of it is people are scared of the powerful young female. You know, she is who she is, so they're scared of her, and they should be scared of her because I'm telling you something right now, she's not going away from the national scene. And in fact, I think she has higher aspirations than that. But she's smart and she's talented, and I think that is threatening to the people that are run by the donor class, because she's not you know, attached to the donor class. The donor class can't control her like a puppet, like they can other members, and I think it scares them a lot.
This might be a little bit of fanboy obviousness on my part. Did you have a chance to meet her when you were on the Hill? Work with her at all?
I did not. She did. Her office did sign on to our efforts in the USMCA. She also signed on to a lot of our Latin America stuff. One of our staffers that I talked about before, Jan Skenazy, is deeply involved and deeply knowledgeable about what's going on in Latin America, in particular in Brazil, the Bolsonaro regime being what it was. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's office signed on to a lot of our efforts there, and Rep. Wild was treated as a hero of sorts in Brazil. We actually had members from the Brazilian government come up and meet her and say thank you. An individual that was exiled, I forget his name, and Jan will kill me for forgetting his name, but he went into exile because he was a homosexual member and was getting threats on his life. So he had to leave. Not only did he have to leave government, he had to leave the country. You know, AOC was really good on those positions, but I never had the privilege of meeting her. In terms of members that I did meet, you know, I met the Rep. DeLaros of the world. I met Rep. Lou, Rep. Jayapal. The biggest one that I will hold dear to me, and I have tons of photos because Rep. Wild was in the room snapping photos, and I'll cherish them forever, is I had an hour-long conversation with John Lewis. An hour long. It was unbelievable. We went there on a surprise trip. The rep said, you know, come with me. We have a meeting. I'm like, oh, no, okay. What's this meeting about? She's not telling me. I feel ill prepared. And we get to Cannon office building, and I see John Lewis's name on the door. I'm like, she got me. So we thought it was just going to be, a shake of the hand and nice to meet you. Brought us into his office, and he had, floor to ceiling paintings and different things from his era, the civil rights era, on the wall. And he went through a history with us for about an hour, maybe even more than an hour. And he said, ask any question you want, nothing's off limits. So that's what we did. And he answered things honestly, and just a tremendous guy. And the world is a much darker and worse place without him.
Is the House, I know you can't speak for the Republican caucus, although I would assume it probably is there too, a bit, maybe a bit less so, because they march in such lockstep, way more than Democrats do. Will Rogers, of course, is the famous quote that I don't belong to an organized political party, I'm a Democrat. But is there a bit of a high school-ish almost pecking order in the Democratic caucus? I know that when you were there, Representative Wild was a freshman. The squad were freshmen. Mikey Sherrill was a freshman. Tom Malinowski, from where I was born and raised, Phillipsburg. No, Gottheimer's Phillipsburg. I can't remember now. Hunterdon County, I know, was Malinowski. It was a freshman. Is there a pecking order in the House? Because I have to imagine obviously when you go to the Speaker's office, it's a whole different thing. Or when you rep Clyburn or Steny Hoyer, perhaps even Representative Khanna. I would assume Rep Khanna. I think he sounds like one of the most down-to-earth sort of guys. You just sit, have a cup of coffee with him or have a beer with him. I don't know if he's a drinker, but you know what I'm talking about, that you could just as easily have a cup of coffee with him as anything else. But I have to think when you walk into the office of John Lewis, that's just a whole different, that's just different. That's a whole different level. That pecking order exists, I'm thinking. Or is it that kind of high schoolish, or am I off?
Yeah, so there's official pecking orders. So like Rep Wild, while she was a freshman, was more senior, so she got better choice of committee assignments because she won a special election leading up to the general election. So she was technically more senior than the other freshmen. And then there's these artificial pecking orders, and you're absolutely right. It's different when you walk into John Lewis's office. I mean, it's John Lewis, and I think I can't speak for the members, obviously, but I think that there was a certain deference paid to him when he opened his mouth and spoke. People shut up and listened, as they should. And he was not a man of a lot of words, but when he spoke, he had authority behind it, and rightfully so. And I never understood why he didn't try to go for leadership positions, because he was certainly there long enough. But he had a leadership position in his own right, just artificially, because he was John Lewis, and he deserved it. Just unbelievable. I asked him everything. The question I asked that I felt in hindsight maybe it was kind of a jerk question was, I said, was Lyndon Johnson racist? And was he really committed to the cause? I hear all these things, and I hear the audio recordings of him using terrible language to speak about, his black brothers and sisters in government. And I'll never forget, John Lewis looked at me and said, no man works that hard to pass something without being committed to the cause. And he said, I love Lyndon Johnson as a person. And yeah, he grew up in a different world than I did and used language that he shouldn't have, and maybe even had some prejudices even as he was going through all this. But even though he was imperfect, he was a great human being, fully committed to the cause, and you'll never convince me of it otherwise. And I just thought, man, what a guy. I asked the dumbest question in the world, and he gave me a legit answer.
You mentioned that Rep Wild assembled her own bit of team of rivals, and you and I talked about the state of our party, and I hope I don't forget to ask you about the difference between the progressives and the Clinton Democrats that are still up at the end. Please don't let me forget to ask about that. But let's just, I don't think I'm creating a scene. You've kind of alluded to it that, Rep Wild's at her desk and your staff, your team is in the office, and she says, on X issue, go. And you give the progressive line, and perhaps someone else gives the more the more moderate, or dare I even say a Republican line. And she has to make a decision, obviously. And to be fair, she ran for the office. That's the job she wanted. So that comes with it. But I mean, when you step outside of the issue, did you ever, and you said you had a pre-existing relationship with her. It makes it almost sound like a health condition, but you had a pre-existing relationship with her. You worked together before. I mean, maybe not in the context of the whole policy staff being there and having this team of rivals debate, but perhaps maybe in a more quiet moment even, or if it was just the two of you in the office, well, maybe it's two questions. Were those debates frustrating, especially if you didn't win the day? Or in those quiet moments, did you have those conversations like you and I just had? Did you look her in the face and say, damn it, stand up? You know how you feel about this. I know you believe in the progressive point of view on this. Stand up and own it. That's the right thing to do. Even if it's not the politically popular thing to do, because we know the Lehigh Valley is damn near 50-50. Mm-hmm. But, were there those times where you stood up and almost took the staffer hat off and said, look, it's me and you now. It's Susan and Zach. Stand up and do the right thing. Tell me if I'm not asking you to give anything personal away, and I'm not. I don't want you to tell me anything that you're not comfortable telling me. But tell me about those times. Tell me about those office debates, and then maybe those one-on-ones when you just said, look, I'm right. And you're right. So do it.
Yeah. My frustration, when my frustrations would actually kind of boil up was the frequency of having these conversations. Sometimes I felt like maybe we should be having more of these debates. I never got offended by, another staffer having a position different than mine. Because look, I'm not perfect. I could be wrong on an issue. But I wanted that debate. So where my frustrations were maybe when there needed to be more of that. But in the times that we did have it, I found it to be very instructive and helpful. And no, I never got frustrated if she made a decision that was different than what I was advising. Because at the end of the day, I'm like, you know what? Now she's heard both sides, and she can make that decision. That's her job. That's not my job. I know my place, and fine. The moderate voice on that one won out. So yeah, I never ever felt frustrated when she made a decision that was fully informed by a debate in the office. At least she's gotten both sides. Where I was frustrated was when I felt like maybe a decision was being made where we didn't have that debate. And there were times when that happened. I would say that I tried really hard not to use our friendship and 6+ years of working together in private practice to my advantage, because I didn't want to create conflict within the office. And I think it would have, because there are people that have lived their whole lives in the DC bubble who are working on that staff, who have the right to their opinion, and they should be able to express it. And I think they would have looked at me poorly if I would have abused the relationship that I had with Susan before. That being said, there was really only one issue that I ever, contacted her, behind the scenes on, and that was impeachment. I didn't believe that was going to be a recreation of the Clinton situation, where you come out for impeachment and then there's a election that recoils against you. And the reason for that was, A, Donald Trump was never as popular as Bill Clinton was when he got impeached. And that is fact. Number two, Donald Trump had a really bad habit of engaging in impeachable conduct. So even if you would have voted on that, that news cycle goes away real quick with Donald Trump, because now all of a sudden we're on to the next scandal. So it wasn't going to hurt her politically. And I felt like at that moment, history was more important than re-election. And I thought she was going to win re-election.
And this is the
even
first
with a yes vote.
you're talking about.
I'm sorry?
This is the first impeachment that you're talking about. This
Correct.
is the Ukraine-related digging up dirt on Biden, holding military aid, first impeachment that you're talking about.
Exactly right. And you know, the evidence was so clear cut there. You know, you have a DOJ to investigate wrongdoing, number one. You don't go send somebody who's not in government and as crazy as Rudy Giuliani to go to Ukraine to dig up dirt. That, if there was wrongdoing, you have a DOJ for that. So that's number one. Number two, Rudy Giuliani is a terrible witness. Number three, Lev Parnas is basically begging you to do it when he comes out and admits his wrongdoing. And here, you know, Devin Nunes is sitting there as the ranking member on the Intelligence Committee, and he's meeting with Lev Parnas in the Ukraine to do illegal stuff to, you know, dig up dirt on President Biden. It was just so clear cut. And I just felt like if I didn't in that moment contact Susan Wild, you know, on a friend level and just say, look, this matters. History is going to judge this moment. I would have felt like I did her a disservice. So that was really the only issue that I can think of where, you know, I said, forget the channels of communication, forget involving everyone else. I'm going to talk to you as a human being. And she arrived at that decision on her own. Like, there was nothing I said to her, but she arrived at the decision that he deserved to be impeached for that. And then she went and turned her attention back to the policy matters that mattered to Lehigh and Northampton counties. And she did it expertly, but you know, my whole thing was if she would have voted no on that, I would have been just beside myself. So I had to make it known. And she was kind of late, by the way, in coming out for impeachment. You know, I respect the heck out of her. I almost cussed. I'm sorry. I respect the heck out of her. We'll never have a negative thing to say about her. But if there was one thing policy-wise criticism, she was way too late coming out for impeachment. And she was getting advice to drag her feet, but she came out too late, I think. She came out the same day Nancy Pelosi came out in support of it, and then it made it look like she arrived at the decision because Nancy Pelosi did, which was, in fact, I can tell you 100% not true, but it had the optics.
Certainly played that way, that's for sure. And I do think a lot of Democrats thought she was very late to the party. Party, no pun intended, but late to the gathering, shall I say. 7:54, Zach, I want to make this the last question because you only gave me 3 hours. I'm sure your wife is probably like, geez, you know, she started watching and then she's like, oh my God, you know, this is a marathon, isn't it?
I don't think I'm that interesting anyway. I promise.
I want to ask you, it seems to me, and as a part of our Revolution Pennsylvania, we've been working on this a lot, trying to get, and not just really our revolution, but just as a Democrat, just as a proud member of the Democratic Party. And again, we're not perfect. We're totally not perfect. But we're working on it and we're trying to get better. And we're certainly the only political party that gives anything for the 99% of the people that live in this country. The 99% of the everything, by the way, I think that lives in this country, the trees, the dogs, the cats, the wildlife, the everything that lives in this country, might I say. That said, it would seem to me, and we did have the chance to talk about this on the phone. I'm glad I remembered. And after this question, I only have one more left, believe it or not, because I wrote it down and I don't want to forget. It seems to me there are a lot more progressives. I know we talked about the term, but you know what I'm saying. there's a lot more progressives inside the party than the media would have you believe. I don't believe that there is any kind of huge, like really ugly strife inside the party. Certainly don't think there's any civil war inside the party. But it does seem to me that the quote unquote corporate or Clinton Democrats are still at the very high levels of the party. And the progressives are pretty much, and it's the same way inside the Commonwealth, by the way, that it's the Clintonists, the more corporate money moderates that are at the higher levels, and the progressives are pretty much everywhere else. Not everywhere, but pretty much everywhere else. So I've been working with Our Revolution on this. I've been working with every Democrat I can talk to about this, even trying to bring some of the moderates along and say, look, it's time to stand up, like you and I were talking about. You know, we are the New Deal. We are the moonshot. We are the Peace Corps. This is who we are. How would you say to any street level, if that's the right word, you know, if you're on the radio, you're missing my body movement here, so you might be missing some of the inflections that I'm trying to get across. But we talked yesterday about I'll remind people of the event before I sign off, after I let you go, the event that we did yesterday for Our Revolution, trying to encourage a young woman to be a precinct committee person, get in the party, change the party. What do you say to Democrats who say, well, the party's all run by the corporate, I can't do anything about it? Do you encourage them to go find an empty? I encourage people usually to either run for their municipal committees, their county committees, state committees, become a precinct committee person. I think we always think we have to run for office, but that's not always. In Pennsylvania, they're very separate. You know that. Seems the party and the office holders are very disconnected. In New Jersey, they're exceptionally connected to each other. It doesn't seem to be that way here in Pennsylvania. What do you say to progressives who say the party's never going to listen to us? We have to go form a third party, or we got to burn this house down and build a new one. I think we can renovate the house. What do you say?
I sure hope we can renovate the house. I don't think there's value in burning the house down. I do sympathize with their plight, though. And the reason I say that is the decision makers are, the chairmen and chairwomen of the committees. And those are what I would consider more Clinton Democrats. They're the ones that control the agenda. By and large, a bill has to get through committee to get to the floor of the House. So it's going to be through that lens that these bills are created and brought to the floor. Now, there are some exceptions to get them to the floor of the House. But so I sympathize with that plight, but I would encourage everyone to run that, if you're a progressive, run for your local office. Or if you aspire to something more, run for national office. Take a shot at it. The only way you're going to get the gavel and enact progressive change, right, is to elect enough progressives to then be the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, be the chairman or chairwoman of the House Education and Labor Committee, or the Speaker of the House. We didn't have enough progressive members of Congress to elect Barbara Lee as the Speaker of the House. That was the reality. And now, I'm not saying Nancy Pelosi's doing a bad job. I think she's done a good job. But, Barbara Lee would have been more progressive. Her votes have literally been perfect on every issue, in my opinion. I mean, she doesn't get them wrong.
Do you think that actually changes the party itself, though?
I think if enough of them are elected, it does. Because then all of a sudden the party's like, what are we going to do? Run somebody against all these progressives that are winning? They can do it now because there's not enough progressives that have won. But what you need is these progressives to run for office in such numbers that they start winning enough seats that you can't ignore it anymore. You can't ignore their power anymore. And I think you sort of are starting to see that in some respects with the unseating of an Elliot Angle or the unseating of a Joe Crowley. It's happening, and they better watch out because it's going to keep happening. So yeah, I think that's the way you effectuate progressive change, is you encourage progressives to run for office, but I would even take it a step further and say, yeah, run for your local office, but if you aspire to something more, run for national office. What's the worst that could happen? You lose. I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world. People lose sometimes, but yeah, that would be my advice.
I promise this will be the last question. Promise.
Okay.
At the end of every program, it's a relatively new tradition or habit, if you will. I have been giving out the congressional switchboard number. And I remind folks, and again, this was before your time on the Hill, but I remind folks that in 2017, when the Trump regime took power, they immediately went to try to repeal the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, again, under your portfolio when you were on the Hill. Republicans had control of the House, the Senate, the executive branch, and had a majority, although a slimmer majority, in the Supreme Court. And it was a massive campaign of emails, letters, social media, and phone calls to both the Congressional Central Switchboard, which George has put up on the screen, and the local constituent offices that stopped it. Now, I think there might have been a little bit of the kind of abortion argument in there too, that if we don't actually ever really appeal the ACA, we can keep using it as a political wedge issue. But let's set that aside for now. But there was a massive campaign to not allow that repeal to happen. So I give that number out at the end of every program and tell people, call it. If there's something that you feel passionate about, if there's a piece of legislation, if there's a dare I even say, a social issue, something happening in your hometown, whatever it might be, call the congressional switchboard issue, get to your member of the House, get to your 2 senators. And in fact, folks, if you don't even know who that is, you give them their zip code and they'll tell you who it is. Then they'll connect you. Be polite, keep a nice, polite vocal tone. I don't know if you ever answered the phone in constituent services while you were there.
I did not.
20, 30 seconds at the most. Thank you so much, because for the most part, the folks who are answering those phones are not, they're not making millions of dollars. They're working for a living. Some are interns, some are fresh out of college. They're just trying to work for a living.
Right.
20 seconds, 30 seconds, polite, thank you, even dare I say monotone, and you're done. How much do those phone calls mean to a member of the House of Representatives? Or I can't ask you to speak for the Senate. I know you didn't serve there, but if you, could extrapolate perhaps, but how much do those phone calls mean?
They mean a lot, especially in our office. We actually took and assembled a memo at the end of every week identifying how many calls came in by issue. And we would give it to the Congresswoman. That way she would get an idea of where her constituents were on issues of the given week. And that way it could inform how she was going to vote for what, bills or resolutions to introduce. And it definitely informed a lot of the decisions that Rep. Wild made. So I think it's huge. Having said that, it depends on the member, right? So if the member is controlled by the millionaire donor class, it's going to matter very little. But if your member is, just an ordinary member who cares about their constituents, and there are definitely members that can care about their constituents, it matters a whole bunch. And all you have to do in a lot of these is just to peel off a few. You're not going to get the ones that are only going to support the donor class. You're never going to get those. But if you can pick off the few that genuinely care, you can make all the difference in the world. And you saw it with, John McCain saying no, the thumbs down no, to kill the ACA. It makes all the difference in the world.
I promised that was my last question, and shockingly, I meant it. Surprise, surprise, surprise. But what I do want to do, normally, if I have a candidate or a person who's written a book or something like that, I'll open up, ask them to share their social media. I'm not going to do that to you. But what I do with every guest is there anything in the brief time that we were together is there anything that any answer that perhaps you didn't think you got to fully explain, or any point that maybe you wanted to cover that we didn't get to cover? I just wanted to throw the floor open to you in case we missed anything, or any particular message that you wanted to leave to the listeners and viewers. It might be about political engagement or go get a vaccine or whatever. I just want to throw the floor open to you in case there's anything that we missed.
No, I think we covered it. I mean, I think that the theme of tonight should be strength and union. I do believe that to be true, and that's not just union workers. I believe there's strength and union outside the workplace too. When people come together and decide that they're going to have a critical mass of support for something, major things happen. And I sincerely hope that the progressive movement does that. I hope that there's strength and union in the progressive movement. And I hope that we don't get so divided within our party that it makes progress impossible. So if there was one theme from the night, I hope it was strength and union, both in the workplace and outside the workplace.
What is next for you? Are you content to stay in the courtroom? Are you done with politics? Is there a run for you somewhere in the future? Are you coming back to Lehigh Valley, or are you going to stay in fancy Montgomery County? Where you?
I will never close the door on a political run. I really enjoy being in a courtroom. That's why I left and came back. There's something about being an adrenaline junkie that you just don't get when, I would prepare for a hearing, and Congresswoman Wild would ask the questions, and she'd do it so well because she's a trial attorney herself. But it made me kind of miss, like, I prepared for questions, and then I get to actually ask the questions. So, in the immediate future, really enjoying the trial work, never willing to close the door on a political run, especially if a guy like Scott Perry keeps winning, because at some point somebody has to beat him, right? But definitely am happy where I'm at right now.
Fair enough. I don't have, I warned you that I would thank you a million times over, and I truly will, and I'm going to again. I don't have enough words to thank you for giving me this much time on a Sunday evening. I know you have a little one at home, and your wife put in the comment section that she's still watching. What a trooper.
I don't believe her, actually.
I talk to you all the time. How is she not sick of watching you on TV? She got me sick of that.
She should be. I'm not that interested.
She's watching it for me, I guarantee you. So she must love you.
She must.
Talk to you all the time. How is she not sick of you by now? But
she should be.
She hung in there for the whole time. That's awesome. No, she did. She said she was here, and that was only just a few minutes ago. I'm looking at it right now. I told her how much she rocks. It's incredible.
There you go. You
guys need to become members of the page too, so you can keep up to date with all the fun news stories that our little one likes seeing him on a screen. It's funny. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. There's Dad. There's Dad. I want to know, Amy, if you can type in quick, what did your little one think when Dad shaved his head? That's what I want to know. Did he recognize that, or what? Did he come down from upstairs and go, "Oh, look, no, that's not him. I don't know who it is."
He was a little nervous. He was definitely a little nervous. Now he loves it. He loves rubbing my head now. So,
does he still like all the Washington teams, or are you transferring him over to Philadelphia?
What's funny is he is really taken to football, and we have a bunch of 1990s starting lineup figures that I had when I was a kid. And he's latched onto the New Orleans Saints because I had a couple Saints guys within the starting lineup figures. So he's a big Saints football fan.
Well, Amy said he loves your bald head. That's
There you go.
oh, I think that's hilarious. That's hilarious. But I remember seeing the pictures that you put up of him in the national. I think it was a Nationals jersey, wasn't it? Or national.
Wizards jersey. Yeah, Wizards jersey.
Oh, DC doesn't know anything about sports. Come on.
I'm not a Wizards fan either. I just thought the jersey was too cute not to put on a toddler, so I bought them when we went to the game.
Hey, listen, it's an international break this week for football.
Real football.
The one you play with your feet. So I'm my U.S. men's. Well, the women actually wore this too. They use the same kit. They don't pay them the same, but they use the same kit. So I have my U.S. men's national team jersey on. They had a good week for a couple of friendlies. The Olympic qualifying match is happening right now. I have no idea what's happening with that. To see if the the squad that they put together to qualify for the Olympics is going to make it or not. I've worn Manchester United jerseys on here, and I've seen the comments going, "What are you wearing?" It's called football, folks. It's called football. It's a round thing. You kick it and you play it with your feet. Not like here in the States where you throw it. That's football. That's the NFL, as I refer to it. Football is when you kick it on the ground. Another thing that we do completely different than the entire rest of the planet, like we know better than they do. Football. They all play. The whole rest of the world plays it, and they're real good at it. But anyway, listen, thanks. I mean, just thank you. And I think the important thing that I want to say to you, that I say to every guest here, I'm fortunate enough that that we were friends before this. We're better friends now. And look, you're a member of the family now. You're a member of the Kennedy Effect family. The door to this program is always open to you. And I mean that sincerely. If there is something that you feel needs to get out to our audience, if there's a case that you're working on that you think is really going to affect people's lives, if there's a policy position that you think people need to know about, or you just want to come on and share some thoughts, the door to this program is open to you. And I very, very much hope and sincerely hope, and Amy too, because I love her comments. They're funny. That, and I hope I've gained 2 new loyal listeners and watchers too as well. But I very sincerely hope that this will not be the only time that you grace us with your being a guest on the program, and that it's not the only time that you visit, that you come back and see us again.
I appreciate that, Jeff, and I hope that once this COVID thing is over, we can meet and have a beer together and actually interact like real human beings again.
Oh my God, sit at a bar. I just want to sit at a bar and have a pint. My God. You know what? Let me just say, I'm not a drinker. I'm not a big drinker. I'm really not. But just to sit at a bar and have a pint. I just want to sit at a bar and have a pint. Is that so much to ask?
Wear your masks so that we can drink beer again.
I understand the logic of not allowing people to sit at a bar because you congregate in an indoor space over a long length of time. I get it, but geez, I just want to sit at a bar in a pub and have a Guinness or 2, maybe, or more. Watch a football match. I just want to sit at a bar and have a pint of Guinness and watch a football match and hopefully watch United win one and not blow it like they do all too often. But yeah, that's all I'm asking for. I'm a simple guy. I just want to have a pint and watch a football match. But yeah, so it's not like you don't know your way around here, around this valley, do you?
Exactly.
Hey, listen, I truly mean it. I mean it. I really do. Thank you. I'm very, very grateful for all your time. I really mean it. And your honesty and the insights. I hope all the viewers and listeners took away that, it's not all press conferences and floor speeches and flowers and campaigning and, TV appearances, at Congress. There's real work that gets done. And there's a lot of good people that work behind the scenes to try to do the right thing for people and in their homes and in their communities and counties and states and trying to do the right thing. And it's not all glory. There's a lot of dirty work that gets done behind the scenes. You were doing it. And I hope people took a lot away from it. And I'm just very, very grateful that you took this much time to be with me. And like I said, I repeat myself a lot, but like I said, Please don't let this be the only time you come and visit us. The door is open to you. You only ever need, if I don't get to you first and there's something that you want to share with the audience, buzz me. The door is open to you. You're welcome here anytime.
Thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate it. Have a good night.
Please have a great night.
Yep.
That is Zach Fowler, who's a former staffer for Pennsylvania U.S. House Representative Susan Wild, the 7th District, my district here in the Lehigh Valley, Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton, a good piece of Lehigh County, all of Northampton County, and a little piece of Monroe County here in Pennsylvania, and a friend. And I'm very fortunate to say that. I want to remind you of something before we say good night. I should have mentioned that I'll keep the phone line open, by the way, because God knows it's just jammed with callers. The phone line is still open, by the way. It's 267-227-9189. George will keep the phone line up for the congressional switchboard. Those are two different phone numbers. The phone number for the program, 267-227-9189. That is on your screen in my box if you're watching. The number I'm giving you if you're listening on the radio, 267-227-9189 is the phone number for the program. If you're watching the program, George has the number for the congressional switchboard up on your screen. And remember what Zach just told us. Those phone calls matter. They matter. Your member of the House of Representatives tracks those phone calls. They gauge the issues that you are calling them about. We took this many phone calls about healthcare. We took this many about the minimum wage. We took this many about flood mitigation. If you live, where I live here on the Saucon Creek or on the Lehigh River, the Delaware River. If I'm in the middle of Idaho, about preserving public lands or cattle grazing lands or oil development in Texas or beach erosion in New Jersey. They take those calls seriously. Call your representative and speak to them. Be polite, be concise, but call, be engaged. Yesterday, Kristen and I had an opportunity to host very similar to what I do here on this program with you each week. And our Revolution Pennsylvania round table and campaign style event, strategy session about reforming the Democratic Party here in Pennsylvania. We had the opportunity to speak with Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner, Pennsylvania State Representative and U.S. Senate candidate Malcolm Kenyatta, Montgomery County Councilwoman Alexandra Khalil. She is also a U.S. Senate candidate, and there is a 5-minute long video from Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor and U.S. Senate candidate John Fetterman. That video is on the the Facebook page, he tried to say, obviously getting late into the show now, is on the Facebook page for Our Revolution National. If you just go into the search bar on Facebook and type in Our Revolution, you'll find it. It's on the Facebook page for Our Revolution Pennsylvania, O-U-R, our, O-U-R, not H-O-U-R, the time period, but our as in hours, all of ours. O-U-R, Our Revolution Pennsylvania. You will find it there, and I have also put it up on that other side of information. You will see a big portion of the program that was hosted by Kristen and myself, asking questions of the U.S. Senate candidates, a discussion on the state of things here in the Commonwealth and the state of the Democratic Party itself. And if you are not from Pennsylvania and you're thinking to yourself, well, why do I care about that? U.S. Senate is exactly as it sounds. It's U.S., United States Senate. These are offices, although Mr. Kenyatta, Mrs. Khalil, and Mr. Fetterman are running to represent Pennsylvania. These are these are national type audiences. What they would be advocating for, what they're campaigning on, and should they be elected, what they would be representing and voting on are issues that will affect the entire country. So it does affect you. And when we get to the part of the discussion about the Democratic Party, you have a Democratic Party where you are too, folks. Anywhere in the United States, you will, I think you will find the discussion very informative. It is not very long. It's not a 4-hour long video like the program. It is, I think, about half an hour. But I think you'll enjoy it a great deal. And you can find that at the Our Revolution national page, Our Revolution Pennsylvania, and of course the home page for this program, That Other Side of Information. A program note to you. 8:21. So let's just see if we can't go about 9 more minutes. Take you right to 8:30. 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189, 227-9189. A programming note for you. 1 week from this evening is Easter. We will not be with you for Easter. There will be no live program next Sunday. I beg you, please celebrate Easter as safely as you are able. Common sense. Now, a good number of Americans have been vaccinated. I'm very happy to say Kristen has been vaccinated. The CDC has put guidelines out that the number of people who can gather who have been fully vaccinated seems to be kind of normal. 100 people could get in a room if they've been fully vaccinated. Seems to be, if you have a group of folks and they've all been fully vaccinated, they can kind of live life normally. A fully vaccinated person can be in a room with those who have not been, but should probably still wear a mask and should keep the gathering down to small numbers, single digits. So if you plan to see family for Easter, please do it smartly, do it safely. Easter is a Christian holiday. If you are a member of the Christian faith, as I am, I wish you a blessed, blessed, blessed Easter. Please remember what Easter is about. If you are a believer and a follower of the faith, if you are as Pope Francis has said, our elder brothers and sisters of the Jewish faith, we wish you a wonderful, peaceful, and happy Passover. I have no idea, not being a religious scholar. I'm sure I may be missing some other religious holidays that are taking place during this very holy time. I apologize if I am, but please know whatever faith you may follow. And even if you are not a churchgoer, but a person of faith, I wish you peace, pleasantness, happiness, holiness, and a very, very blessed holiday time, Passover, Easter, or whatever holiday your faith may bring you at this time of year. Please, I beg you, be safe. Be safe, be safe, be safe, be safe. Wear a mask. Just be careful. Be smart. Use common sense. Please don't go to huge crowded indoor restaurants. I know, the odd thing I've found, something that really struck me as very odd, and I just don't think it's smart. Look, folks, I want to get back to normal as much as anybody else. I want to get back to, well, I don't want the Trump part of it, but I want to get back to what we had before this pandemic as much as anybody else. I want to go see the Yankees. I'd like to go see the Red Bulls. I want to go indoor restaurants. I want to go to the Jersey Shore. I want to go to Newport, Rhode Island. Again, I don't know where I'm getting the money for all this stuff, but you get my point. but it just isn't safe. So we can't yet. We're so close. Please remember what President Biden said during his press conference this week. We're close. We're so close. It's his goal and belief that we are going to have 200 million Americans vaccinated within the first 100 days of his administration. It's the administration's goal, and I think their quiet internal belief that we'll be largely, they're not going to say it. Their tact seems to have been to under promise and over deliver, and that's a safe way to do it. I think their internal, they've kind of intimated at this somewhat. They haven't said it straight out, that this nation could largely be back, quote unquote, back to normal by the 4th of July. But we have to stay smart until then. I was very shocked to see Connecticut, a blue Northeast state, a giver state, a state that sends more money to Washington than it gets, a maker state, throw open restaurants, 100% capacity. I was very, very surprised to see that. I hope it doesn't lead to a spike in cases. Texas did the 100%. Mississippi did the 100%. I think they did it largely to deflect attention from the failures of the ice storm and the way they watched their power grids disintegrate. And they have seen spikes. There have been spikes in Florida after spring break. So and these variants are the UK variant, the South African variant are epic. Did the US lose? I think the US might have lost in the Olympic qualifying. I am trying to see. I don't see it. The United States miss out on a spot in the Olympics. Oh, for goodness sake. My God in heaven. The U.S. national team has not qualified for an Olympic spot since 2004 or 2008. Oh, God in heaven. That means they lost at Honduras. God almighty. Jesus, this team can't do anything proper. The senior team better do something this summer. Tell you what, World Cup qualifying starts this summer, by the way, for the United States. Watch this space. That said, anyway, be smart. And I would ask you, please, 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 be smart, be safe during this holy, holy time. And I beg you safety. I truly do. George, is there anything you would like to add before we say goodnight to the good folks?
Just that my wedding anniversary is the day after Easter. 0405.
So you're saying Jesus rose from the dead for your wedding?
No, but if I don't mention it on the air and tell my wife that I do love her very much, somebody else might die. So,
and then will you rise from the dead? I'm guessing.
No,
I'm guessing not.
Apparently formic acid,
lye does dissolve everything pretty much.
I'm at 300 degrees. Yes.
I saw that.
I don't know. How do I know that? I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I saw Sopranos. Lye pretty much. I saw.
No, actually, that was a person of interest. I think that was an episode that I saw. Anyway, so just wanted to tell my wife, I love you. Thank you for 5 wonderful, blissful years. So she doesn't feel the same way, maybe. But I don't know. But I don't know. I'm gonna die for that one. I know I'm gonna die for that one. That's okay. But
Well, I certainly thank Lynn for 5 wonderful, blissful years. Especially the last year on this program has been extremely blissful. Speaking of dying for that,
Yes, that is the,
What? You think I'm going to be off for Easter next week? I'm going to be off because Lynn's going to drive down here and just kill me. I'm kidding. Look, I know Lynn gets irritated sometimes at the amount
my
of
body's going to be in the trunk when she comes down the drive.
exactly.
There you go.
You could dump it right in front of my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, like listen, she gets irritated at the amount of time that George and I take on the program sometimes, and I get it. I get irritated at the amount of time that George and I take on the program sometimes because the amount of time that him and I are the amount of money that he and I are making on the program, close your eyes. Not a thing. In fact, believe me, we are in the hole on this program. We are in the red. We have spent more money on this than we've ever gotten. So I can understand why she gets irritated. And George and I do take a lot of time on this. And in fact, George probably takes more time than I do because he does a lot of stuff on the, starting, he's going to post this program to YouTube tonight and then, or probably tonight. If not tonight, he's going to do it tomorrow morning. And then, during the week, he's always researching, I think we have a better computer for this, or I think we could find a better mic for this, or, I think we need to rearrange the room this way, when we can be in the same space again. And, the fact that we've been able to pull this off, we're just, are we going to be, when is the 17th of April? Because that was my first program. It was a Saturday. So really the 18th of April is going to be pretty much the year anniversary for this program.
Nice.
So, we've put a lot into this and, sometimes I gotta say, when I'm having a hard time finding a guest, or if I have a headache, a migraine, I suffer from migraines, by the way, I just don't feel like doing it. And but then every time I sit down behind this mic and I begin to talk to you, good folks out there that I know are listening and watching, I get energized all over again, and I know exactly why we do it, and I enjoy it, and I'm thrilled by it, and I hope George feels the same way. I know April feels the same way. I'm very blessed that Lex and Earl feel the same way. Kristen's been kind enough to support me tremendously, and there were good people who supported me before that. Robin and the kids supported me before that very, very much, and I'm very lucky, and I'm very fortunate to do this. I love doing it. I truly do. Even when I'm having a bad day, and even in the days I don't want to do it, I sit down here and I realize how much I want to do it all over again. We enjoy it, and we're going to continue to keep bringing you the best possible program that we possibly can, the most informative, the most entertaining, just the best program that we can. We do have a Patreon subscriber. We got our very first Patreon subscriber. I believe, mention it last week. My dear friend Laura, I will not expose her any more than that. We have to figure out how to get Laura her goodies. We got 2 new loyal listeners tonight, I hope, in Zach and his wife Amy. We added a new member of the Kennedy Effect family tonight in Zach. I'm very proud of that. And, we're going to just keep, all the money that we bring in via Patreon. And you can visit us at patreon.com/thatothersideofinformation and check out our subscriber information. There are goodies for you for subscribing. We don't just beg you for money. You will get something for that money. You can always catch show announcements on the Facebook page. I share those announcements all across Facebook. You can see video show announcements at TikTok. I did remember to do one this afternoon, about 2 hours before we took the air. Not so helpful probably, but I did one. You can find us on TikTok, That Other Side of Information as well. But whatever money should happen to come in through Patreon, it will go back into the program, period. That's it. It's going back into the program. One of these days I don't want to pick up the laptop because I have it positioned just perfectly. But perhaps I'll pick up a different camera and try to show you around the room and show you what we're dealing with. It's just a second bedroom. It's nothing fancy. But once everyone is vaccinated and George is able to come here in person, we we're going to fix up this room. It's going to be a nice video, TV presentation, and we just want to keep bringing you a better and better and better program each week. We're proud of the program, but we know we can do better. That's what we want to do. So again, I think that is it for us for this week. Again, let me just remind you, we will not, it is Easter next week, right?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm just making sure of that. We will not be with you next week live, but you can watch all of the recorded versions of this program at what has become our repository, our library for the Kennedy Effect. That is youtube.com/that other side of information. You're never too far away from us. We're always there. We're insipidous. We're always there. You can find us all the time. No live program next week. Enjoy your Easter. I will suggest to you one tradition in my family, or at the minimum, it was a tradition between my late father and I. And every time that it is, every time around this time of year, I'm reminded of it, especially when it's on TV. My father never made me watch too many things. But there was 3 movies that he made me watch. And he never said it that way. He would just say, it's not like he said, I'm going to make you watch this and you have to. And he would just say, sit down and watch this. Okay. If he said it, I did it. And there was 3 movies that he very specifically said to do that with. There were others that he suggested. There was lots of stuff that he and I watched together, including some history documentaries that we didn't exactly agree on the outcomes of, from a political point of view, but that's a whole other story. One of those movies was Spartacus, Kirk Douglas. One was Ben-Hur, the Charlton Heston Ben-Hur, not the silent Ben-Hur. And the third is airing Saturday, April the 3rd, from 7 p.m. Eastern Time here in the United States on ABC, as it does traditionally, and that's the 10 Commandments with Charlton Heston. So we will be, if for some odd reason you're wondering, I should pop into your brain and you're wondering what the heck I'm doing next Saturday night, or this coming Saturday night, really, I guess, as you look at it, that is what I will be doing. And I will be both happily and very, very painfully thinking of, painfully meaning sadly, thinking of Pop, thinking of my father, because he gave me that gift and made me watch it. And I've been enamored with it ever since. And I watch it every time it's on. And it's an Easter tradition for us. I show it for Passover, but I think it's shown more for Passover, but it's a tradition for me. And so that's what we'll be doing next Saturday. So if you're thinking of it, Saturday night, 7:00, an absolute classic and masterpiece of movie making. Trust me. George, anything I missed? Anything you want to throw out to anybody again? I know I just asked you that, but still, anything else that we missed or throw out before we say goodnight?
No, if I don't see you, happy Easter. I have a Mac on my desk that I've been doing surgery on, actually, actually during the program. So.
Oh, because you were that engaged.
I know. I mean, I can multitask.
Well, then in that case, let me just say to all you good folks, all of you, remember, you can find the full recorded version of this program at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/that other side of information. And you can find it at any of the Facebook places pages, groups, etc., where it has been shared in its full.
And also Twitter.
And Twitter.
It'll be on our Twitter page.
See, and you said you didn't have anything to add. There you go. Yeah.
Right.
Twitter.com/that other side of information, and our Twitter handle to reach us via Twitter at that Kennedy Talk. Also Instagram, that other side of information. Please, everyone, be kind to each other. It should not take a holy period for us to be kind to each other. We should be kind every day. But if this holy period is a time to make you more reflective, more faithful, and more faithful to the faith itself, then so be it. But please be kind to each other, talk to each other, don't yell and scream, have conversations, not arguments. Check on your neighbors, especially the seniors. Check on your neighbors. There's still a pandemic going on. We are coming out of it. We're getting there, but we're not all the way there yet. Oh, and by the way, George, not a single internet warning message this time. Throwing that out there, which just shows you, by the way, it's completely random in my humble opinion. So that's it for this week for the Kennedy Effect. That's a wrap for the 28th of March. The Facebook page is up 24/7. It's Facebook. It never closes. I hope you'll go to the Facebook page, That Other Side of Information. See the news stories that we share. They are not all political. Obviously, a lot of them are. They are not all political. There's science stories, environmental stories, and actually a lot of stories about wildlife and pets and good feel-good stories, good, nice stories, positive stories there as well. Visit us all week long, 24/7, That Other Side of Information on Facebook, all things having to do with the Kennedy Effect. We will see you again live. I let the phone close. We will be back with you live again on the 11th of April. April 11th will be our next live program. We will speak to you then. Again, until then, please stay safe. Use common sense. Stay healthy. Every single one of you means something to us, and we want to see you back here again. Until next time, for DJ Lex, DJ Earl at hot101.net, for our executive producer and, dare I say, creator, April Riddick, and for technical producer, George Dare, and happy anniversary, Lynn. I am Jeff Kennedy. We will see you again on the 11th. Please take care of yourselves and each other. Good night.